Hello everyone, welcome to the 8 Regents of Westeros tournament for one last time. So this is I guess the after party for the Baratheon victory. As you can see here, these are the final standings, Baratheon ending up on top, and we have most of the players from that team now joining us to talk about our tournament run. So we'll go through some of the stuff that happened throughout the tournament, from picking the actual players in the draft, and then the trades we did, some of the deck building, and just the general strategy in the team, and also some chat about the actual games and how we managed to get the win in the end. And so there's 7 of us here, I think, or maybe 6. We have Marek has some technical issues, so maybe he is missing, and I will introduce everyone, and apologies in advance if we talk over each other a little bit. It's difficult enough with 2 people present when we commentate, so with 7 there should be some of that happening for sure. So who is here? We have our star player, Denis. Hi Denis.
I'm not sure if I'm the star player, but hey.
Yeah, definitely, and ended up on top as well, so no doubt about that now. Also we have Paweł. Hello.
Hi. Not a star player by any margin. Hi guys.
Hi.
Then we have Stephen Patain here. Hi Stephen.
Hello. I don't know if I'm a star player, but it says star ×1 on Jousting Pavilion, so that makes me feel good.
Yeah, nice. So we have some players
I had 3.
that got some points for this tournament. Really nice, but unfortunately I missed out. 5th place in my own team. Okay, Marek is here. He's having some sound issues, so hopefully he can join us later. I think he can hear us, but we can't hear him. And then, of course, there is myself. And we have Peter as well. Hi, Peter.
Guys, you know, we have to have someone bring some losses into the team to make it dramatic, so that was my job.
Yeah, but only in the second half. Started off really well here.
During the tight matches that mattered, you know, I would lose early and then you would all pull it out, so.
That's strategy.
Yeah, someone has to do this.
That's right, we gotta make it interesting.
Yeah.
And the last voice you can hear today is, of course, our boss, the Regent Ivailo. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
So as you can see, 2 players are missing, so Stelios is busy today, can't have him unfortunately, and also Victor is not here. So I would start actually with you, Ivailo. You can say a few words about how this tournament actually came to be, and how you found this whole experience.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mia. As I already said, it was really surprising that Magnus asked me to be regent, and yes, I did not have really much choices between the houses. There was only one house left. I don't know why. Maybe it's the most terrible one for the others, and that's why he gave me the house which was left, and this was Baratheon. Yeah, and so it starts. It was maybe really fast, yes, because I like Magnus and his energy and his efforts for this game, and for sure I would like to support this, and that's why I said yes to this tournament, yes to this task, and it was a really nice. It is a great team. We will talk about building the team and so on, and in the end, the house that was left is the winning house. Great.
Yes. So
You don't say no to you don't say no to Magnus. It's impossible with energy and this enthusiasm. You just don't say no, right?
yeah, exactly. I think most of us joined because this was such a nice little format, and it looked really interesting on paper, and I think that's exactly how it turned out in the end. So unfortunately, doing this online, can't open a bottle of champagne here, but I do have my alcoholic beverage that I will now open. So apologies in advance if I start talking nonsense in a couple of hours here.
Maybe if you are sitting in the sun, yeah, like here in Berlin, with alcohol, that could be a problem.
All right, so does anyone have anything else to say about this tournament before we go to the actual draft, or should we just go with that and see how we assemble this team?
Yeah, maybe you remarked it's a little bit something you said about the nice little tournament. I also thought it would be a nice little tournament, but it wasn't little at all. Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah.
More than 60 players in the end, so really well attended. And I think it's the format that brought a lot of people back, because the war format that was used, of course, in when it was held in person in the United States, and there was one planned in the UK that was unfortunately cancelled due to the pandemic in the end. It's a really popular format, and I think we have a lot of players here who had taken a break from the game in the last year or so, but coming back just for this one, and really nice to see, actually.
Yeah, it's brought out.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's brought out some really interesting decks. I knew this was gonna happen. You go.
Go on, Steven.
You go.
Okay, no, I was just meant to say that also the timing, I think it was perfect for this tournament, because we're approaching like a regular in-person circuit. We have regionals, we have nationals, and it's a perfect segue to bring the community back together. Of course, it's a team tournament that involves a lot of interaction, a lot of discussion about the decks. It engages community. So on top of the format itself, which is brilliant, and I had so much fun in it, the timing of the tournament, I think, is really perfect. And we have nationals coming up, so I'm really hyped for what's going on with Thrones right now. I think we're back.
Yeah, I'm loving also seeing all the decks that this tournament has sort of brought out. Like, you're just not seeing. You don't usually see this faction paired with this agenda, but lately, because of this tournament has been so big, everyone's trying it out, and you're seeing it a whole bunch online, and it's really lovely to see.
I think that a lot of that speaks to the strength of the redesigns, and when it came down to the fact that not only is there a lot of variety of things that can work, there's a lot more fun, I think, decks out there to build. It just opens a lot of the possibilities. So I was hesitant to get back into the game, like, as of a couple months ago, but I had a couple local guys talk me into it because the World Championship was coming up, and this tournament just really kind of increased my enthusiasm for the game once again. So I tell people that once again my crippling card addiction has returned. So I blame Magnus and you all for that.
I be heard now.
Me as well.
Yeah,
I
we
haven't
can hear you, Marek.
cards. Okay.
Yeah, we have
I
Marek
didn't play
joining us, I think.
for 2 months. Yeah. All right.
So it finally worked out.
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Hello to you as well.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay,
Glad to
so
hear you.
let's proceed then with the actual draft. So I have this, let me just check, I've saved it somewhere. I have this image of the draft day. I took this from the White Walker stream. It was streamed live, and these are the picks as they were done on that evening. And as you can see, Baratheon had the third pick in this first little round, and well, I can ask you directly, Ivailo. So we see Hanno Lunser is gone with the second pick to Martell. So if you had the option, you were going to pick him, right?
Yes, sure. Yeah. As you, I shared the link. I don't know if it works for you too. Maybe you have 2 screens like me, and easily check the draft. Yes, I was really bad prepared. I have to confess, unprepared. Yeah, for this draft. There were so many players, and I had some ideas for sure. Hanno first. Yeah, I know him. He is living in Berlin like me, We are playing. We played a lot together, also in live, and yeah, of course, he's a great Baratheon player. And after he was picked by Martell, yeah, my plans were pulverized. And of course, I know Dennis, also German player, and I know he is really strong. And also I know Baratheon is not his first house, I would say. But anyway, I think we will need you will need some Stark players. That's why in my first panic, but maybe it's a good decision too. I picked Dennis.
Yeah, all right, Dennis. So I'll give you a chance now. How did you feel about being drafted to Baratheon?
I think I felt pretty well. I mean, I don't know if I expected to go as the third pick overall, and as Ivailo mentioned, if Hanno was still on the table, I'm sure I wouldn't have been. But
Sorry, Dennis.
I think Baratheon was one of my favorite picks. I mean, of course, Stark. I think Stark has to be my favorite faction, but if you play Stark all the time, it's good to play something else. And I think Baratheon or Tyrell would have been my first picks if I could choose a faction that chose me. So I was pretty happy, I guess.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that you were also in Team Baratheon for that UK war event that was ultimately cancelled.
Yes, when you mentioned it was cancelled because of the pandemic, and Wama selected me there also. So this was kind of my that didn't happen, but the 8 Regent happened, and I was at Baratheon, so this was also a good one. I kind of felt the pressure going as the first pick for this team. I kind of had to deliver.
Yeah, you delivered. You ended up our top player. So come on.
Definitely. No problems there. Okay, and then we got some revenge, I guess, on Martell, because the second pick was Steven, so he went just before Martell's second pick. They ended up picking Richard Walker, who, to be fair, was the best player in the tournament. I think he ended up as the only undefeated, I think, in the end. I think he played in 5 or 6 rounds and won all of them. But actually, when I was looking at...
was undefeated as well.
Yes, exactly. Sorry about that. Forgot about him. So when I was looking at the draft, I thought Martell just had an insane draft here. So they got Marcel Arias with the third pick, and then Gabriel, who is a world-class player that we saw going far in the Worlds and in some national events, going fourth, and then the other players as well, pretty experienced. And in the end, they ended up trading Richard for Aaron Groth, who is also, of course, very familiar with Martell, plays a lot of Martell, and is a very strong player. So they had a strong team, but in the end, we only just beat them. We had a game against them, of course, in round 7, and I think if they had Steven, we would have been in trouble possibly. So that was a nice one for us. So, Steven, you were, I assume you were hoping to be in Martell here, but how did you feel about Baratheon?
Realistically, right, I thought Martell is obviously my number one preference, but because I know a lot of the names here that you see in Martell, I know that they're more renowned players and they're generally better players than I am. I was expecting myself not to get Martell from the get-go, but I was, it would have been a nice thing to have. I did wake up to this because this happened whilst I was asleep. And I'll be honest, I was actually pleasantly surprised with getting Baratheon because, like after Martell, it's usually Baratheon or Lannister are two of my next favorite factions to work with. The only benefit I would have had with Martell is I have a lot of deck building experience with Martell, not as much with Baratheon. So in the end, this tournament was a lot of fun because I did get that deck building experience for Baratheon, and I'm now really, really enjoying it. But yeah, I didn't expect to get in. I'll be honest. I was pleasantly surprised that I ended up being second pick though for Team Baratheon, considering I know I don't really have a huge like international presence. Not many people know about me. Only been joining it recently. But yeah, it was really fun. I was really excited.
Yes. I have to also give some explanation to this second pick.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the sheet of players. I shared it, but I can't find it right now. I think Paweł or Marek asked me to share it. Anyway, the players were in depending on their winning rate. And my plan was to pick Mia. Yes, and that's why I switched the pot with my second pick to be the first one in the third pick. Yeah, if you Steven's win rate maybe is not so high, so medium. I suggest. I don't know exactly. And if you pick someone from the second pot, then you are the first one for the third pot.
Okay.
I didn't know about this. Oh,
Yes.
nice.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's why I was looking at the second pot. Good person. I know. And yes, I'm not really sure about Steven, but I think we played also before, and you're an active player, and with the new cards, the new for implementing new cards, you're very active, and so I thought that would be a nice pick. Sure, I know you are a Martell player, but that was a general reason, to have Mia,
I like that. That's actually good. I like that's a good strategy. I was there to help us get Mia, so I'll just accept that I'm the reason we won, guys, because we got. Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
The lesson here is that Ivailo knew exactly what he was doing.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
Mia.
then
Oh,
I
you are the
went
third.
third, and I will show you my profile. So as you can see, I am a Baratheon player. Most of all, this empty space here is from the tournaments where you don't have one particular deck, mostly the Champions of Westeros, where I did also mostly play Baratheon. And I've been playing Baratheon from basically the start of the game, from the core set back in late 2015. And it was the top faction, of course, at the beginning, playing that Baratheon Nil deck. And I fell in love with those mechanics, and then I basically stuck with them for the next few years when the deck was maybe not the top deck, or even I would say Baratheon was really struggling as a faction, but really like that control mechanic. And only in the recent times when most of the stuff has, of course, gone to the online events, I've played some other factions, trying new stuff with the casual events like the friendly open, and but Baratheon has been my main love basically in this game for since the beginning. So I was very happy to be drafted in the Baratheon team, and I figured even if I was drafted into a different team, maybe I would be somehow used as a trade piece to get me to Baratheon in the end. But I was willing to play any faction here. I think it's a really fun format, so I would have enjoyed building some weird decks for the other factions as well. As long as I didn't end up in Targaryen. As you can see, that's the one faction where I have 0 entries so far. Sorry, so where were we? Yeah, so and then of course picking me at the beginning of the third round of picks, of course that meant that the next pick was slightly lower down. And Ivailo, you picked Stelios, which I thought also was quite a steal as the fourth pick, because he is a very active player that has some good statistics.
Yes, good statistic, and also if you could share his stats also with some experience of Baratheon.
Yeah.
seven tournaments, I think. Yeah, and also I know him because we played together this. What was the tournament before? Was it? Was waren dieses Tournament davor? Ja.
By 3 they come, or what do you?
No, another one. I can't remember, and that's why I knew Stelios, and I shared the 8 Dragons Westeros sheet, and then you are searching for the players who are left and clicking here on their profile, and the others are waiting and communicating. Yeah, that's why I feel very safe to pick Stelios.
Now that we are on this profile, if you look at mine, I don't know where it is, but I told you no. But I told the Regents no one to draft me because I have no time to play. I can't see mine is here, but Ivailo.
Sag mal Ivailo.
Ivailo didn't heard of me, and yeah, they should not. Yeah, the question was why should the Regent draft you, and I put they should not, but yeah, Ivailo did.
Yeah, can't see
And it turned out I had some time to play.
Thank you.
Here it is. Yeah. They should not. Nice. Okay. Okay, so we can't hear from Stelios, unfortunately. He is not here with us today. And then the next pick, of course, if we go back to this image, was Elise from that was later traded to Stark. So what was the thinking there, Ivailo?
Honestly, there was no thinking. We were discussing some players. I asked Mark, I think it's a French player too, the regent of, which house was it? Matt was the
Martell.
regent of Martell, House Martell. And I asked him, and I also wanted to be a little bit diverse, and I don't know if she or he is really a woman. Maybe it's a fake name, I don't know. And that's why I picked Lise, and Matt said, yeah, really strong player. I know her. He's really good. And I didn't realize that she hasn't experience with Baratheon at all, I think.
Yeah, just the one.
But it was good for trading.
Entry looks like it's a draft event or something. But yeah, she has a lot of tournament entries in recent times as well. So she's not one of those players that was coming back after a break. And good statistics, a good win rate. So I think that was a sensible pick. But as you say, obviously she plays Stark a lot more. 28 tournament entries.
Was more reasonable.
Yeah.
And because Lise was in the pot 1, I think, you see, then I was in the next pot, the last one. And I think Marek and I played also before several times. And I knew him. So, yes, I did this pick.
Yeah, I thought that was quite a steal towards the end of the draft as well. Marek obviously very experienced, but not sure, Marek, how you felt about playing Baratheon. I know you don't like some of the mechanics that Baratheon has.
I was open to play anything but Night's Watch.
Yeah, as you can see in Marek's profile. Yeah, nothing with Night's Watch so far. But some Baratheon experience as well, and it ended up, I think, as a really strong pick for us. 4 wins out of 6 games.
I picked the active in challenge specs.
Yeah, and Baratheon, I think, is diverse enough to basically allow you to play whatever you like to play. We know that Liz is more of a rush player, so she was going to play more stuff like the Crossing and Brotherhood before she was traded. And the other player we had, Connor, maybe would have played some of the more grindy decks. So that was, I think, we got Connor at random, right? Those were randomized towards the end, and actually, I think this is another stroke of luck that we had. Unfortunately, he was traded later, but was towards the end because of his win rate. But as you can see, very experienced in the number of games and tournament entries, and he ended up playing terrifically well for Stark, getting them 4 wins. So sad to lose him in the end. Right, and so the other players joined us later. Got Peter. So some of the players entered the tournament after it had already started, and it was decided that they would be allowed to join teams so that everyone would have 9 players. And Peter was one of the players that we got, and I think this actually turned out really well for us, because there were not many Baratheon loyalists in the tournament at all. Even when we were looking for trades, we couldn't find many in the other teams. But as you can see, Peter, you play exclusively Baratheon, don't you?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a one-faction pony. I did put in my draft notes that I was willing to play anything but Greyjoy. I just, if there's any faction, I've mentioned to you guys that I could just catapult into the sun, it would be the Squids. I just hate them.
But you like the cards.
I like keeping my locations. That's all I have to say. But yeah, so like in the United States, I'm one of the few Baratheon loyalists. It's not a very popular faction here. There's a lot of Stark. There's a lot of Greyjoy. There's some Lannister as well. And it was myself and then a couple other guys from my local meta here near Washington, D.C. One of the guys who kind of basically got me playing again. He said, "Oh, you should sign up for this." And I was like, "Well, why not? I'm going to play in Worlds." And I was very surprised that I got Baratheon, because I said I was open to anything but Greyjoy. But I guess, Ivailo probably looked at my stats and was like, I might want to draft this person instead of, someone who's not playing Baratheon. But no, I like to play. What's it going on, Ivailo? Sorry.
I think I was the second or the third one to have to pick a player. And that's why I was only looking on the stats, and for sure, my choice was you, and that was also good. You were not too strong, like SGE or another, and that's why we have only to give later, how many? 3 agendas, or?
Yes, so some of the factions, the one that picked first, I think, needed to replace 9 agendas, and we only needed to replace 3, which was a really easy job for us, I think.
That worked out, but yes, no, I was very happy to be drafted on Baratheon. I would have been happy probably on any other faction too. I always like learning, the cards as well, but I will not turn down the opportunity to build, some silly Baratheon decks. So.
All right, and then of course we gathered on Discord, joined our mutual server where we made some plans, and so the first thing that needed to be done, of course, we had 49 games to play, and there are 37 agendas in the game currently, so we needed to pick 12 agendas that would be used for a second time. Every team had to do that. And so we did this. I can show you this little spreadsheet that we made with all of the agendas. So this, we've deleted those that we didn't end up selecting, or that we traded away in the end. So this is a little different than what it was at the beginning, but it lists all the agendas, and I collected some stats. So on the Jousting Pavilion, I can show you, it's really easy. You can click on statistics and you can find, for instance, you can select the faction like Greyjoy and an agenda for them, the prince that was promised, and then you can select the date here. And I used 15th of July last year when Hear My Words was released to get at least some data. And it shows you as you can see here, so 131 games, and it shows you the win rate for that particular combination. And so we did those stats for all the agendas, and got some numbers here, and then all of us also wrote some comments what we thought about the agendas, and we have this color scheme, how likely it was for us to be able to play this in the actual tournament. So green is the positive color here, so those that are green are the combinations of players and agendas that we wanted to play, and then the red ones are those that we didn't really fancy. And there were some surprises here. I think one of the main decks that was known as a strong deck in Baratheon was Assault from the Shadows, that we strongly considered, but it really surprised us that it only had a 33% win rate here. And also we considered Banner of the Sun, and were surprised to find that it wasn't really being played in the last year at all, so just had the 4 games, even though if you go back a few years, it was one of the main decks that Baratheon had. And then on the other hand, there was a surprise with Valyrian Steel, which had a ridiculous win rate. So 20 games is not the biggest, but not the smallest sample size either, and it had a 15 out of 20, which was some crazy stats. And most of that was one tournament that was played in China, where Bara still got first and second place. So we thought maybe the stats were lying a bit here. And this was, of course, all done before the World Championship. And we know that Bing ended up as the finalist in that event with Valyrian Steel for Baratheon. So I guess the stats were not lying in the end. Okay, so we needed to pick 12 agendas, and I think we only realistically considered something like 17. There were a few that we maybe should have considered if we went strictly by the stats, but I can show you now this. This was decided by Ivailo in the end, these 12, and we kind of agreed that the first 6 picks were those that we even wanted a third copy if it was possible, so we could get a third copy of agendas if you did trade with another faction. And we thought that the quick ones, the rushy ones, Alliance and Kohor, were really good. And then at number 5 we had Brotherhood. This is ranked, I guess I made the ranking myself, and some of the other players as well, and this is just loosely ranked according to strength as we perceived it, but it doesn't really matter. There's no difference between 1 and 12 on this list. And so Brotherhood is another rush option, and then the more control decks, Summer, Conclave, Wars, all had really decent results in recent times. And I think the risk we took were the 2 newer agendas. So Mamres Faras, I'll ask you, Steven. So you, I think, suggested, along with some other players, to take a second copy of this after Brand the Builder pack was released.
Yeah, it did. Unfortunately, it didn't perform as well as we wanted it to, for reasons that we'll probably get into later. But I'd come out of actually playing with a lot of the Brand the Builder cards, more specifically the new Gendry, and him combined with Mama's Fast putting weapon attachments onto all of your fools, and utilizing someone like Shagwell to then copy those keywords to everybody. I played it quite a few times, and I realized it was gaining a lot of traction very quickly when you started playing it, against really any deck. All you needed to find was 2 or 3 cards, and then all of your fools, and thanks to Florian and Jonquil, the Florian and Jonquil event as well, even non-full characters, we're just gaining a crazy amount of keywords, and you just keep on hitting as hard as you can. I saw good results, so I thought, it might be, it might be an agenda that not many people would realize is actually good because of how new this deck was, because it was utilizing brand new cards that, we haven't seen in any tournaments yet.
Yes, exactly. So we had to pick this without much data from the Brand the Builder expansion. This was it was released just maybe a week prior, and the World Championship hadn't happened yet. So as you can see, it's 7 out of 11 here, 64% roughly. And this is before, most of these are before. I think maybe all of them are before Gendry even was a thing. So it already was promising. But yeah, we figured that Gendry would push it even further. And this might have been a good one. And myself, I practiced with Storm's End a lot in a lot of decks. And we didn't quite know what impact Storm's End and the other, of course, strongholds for the other factions would have, but I insisted that Kings of Summer, you can see it's on 57% here, was that Storm's End really fits well in that one, and I thought we should definitely try to get 3 copies of that because it would be a strong deck. In the end, it didn't prove that useful in the tournament. We only won 1 of the 3 games, but I did take it to the World Championship and did really well with it, so happy to have that in the end as an option. And so the second one that we kind of gambled on was Battle of the Trident. It had no real stats, I think, in Baratheon. Let's check. Yeah, just the 1 game, so 1-1, lost no games in the stats that we had before the tournament actually started, but we gambled on that one, and that proved to be a really strong pick in the end as well. And then, so the rest that we chose, Aloof and Apart, was actually, if you just look at the pavilion points that were won with in Baratheon with different agendas, Aloof and Apart actually had the most pavilion points in the last year, something like 17 points. I'm not sure exactly which tournament that came from, but seemed like a strong option. And then the 1, 2, 3 is Knights of the Hollow Hill, and Valyrian Steel we did take, so it had those great stats. We weren't sure about it. We didn't think it was really the top deck, but the stats were good. And we gambled on Assault, so that one had poor stats, but we figured a lot of us in the team were willing to play that, and we thought maybe we could make something of it. We thought the stats were maybe lying a little bit there. And so I can tell you what was also considered. So the Banner Sun, initially in this document that we made, a lot of us figured Banner Sun was one of the top agendas that we needed to take, but then we changed our minds when we saw that it wasn't really being played in the last year. And then what else? House with the Red Door, always an option for Baratheon. The Prince that was promised, we considered. I think Dark Wings, Dark Words had good stats, 10 wins in 16 games. And also Crossing had negative stats in Baratheon. It's not on this list anymore because we had no copies in the end, but I think it was below 50%, but always an option because it is the rushiest of all the agendas, I guess, and it's nice to have at your disposal. And there was a tournament, one of the nationals, might have been Norwegian, not sure, where Hano played it. I think he made top 4 with a Crossing deck that had a lot of those, the 7 characters with strength 1, and then played the Crown to keep them in play against 3 sets. So those were the ones that we considered, and it's only something like 17 agendas, so when we had to swap 3 for getting an extra player, I think we had a really easy job, just picking some of those borderline ones towards the end, and swapping for 3 of those that we also had previously considered. So this was not really much of a penalty for us, I think. Should we talk about the trade with Stark a little bit? So Paweł, we haven't introduced you yet. So you were originally part of the Stark team, so you can tell us a little bit how they organized things compared to us, for instance.
Well, I'm not at liberty to disclose, of course, but frankly, I was very hesitant to move. I intended to stay in Stark, firstly because I thought that Stark is a faction that really have the lowest margin of matchups that are unwinnable for them. I mean, you have your Winterfell, you have your core cats, you have your no surprises. Those are cards that you can literally put in any Stark deck, and they just shut down a lot of archetypes. So I thought that I was in a strong faction. I thought that I was in a faction with very large number of top tier players. You had Chris, Richards, Lucas, Gerard. They were top tier as far as I remember, and I was really curious because Stark is a faction that kind of the Stark players got a little bit complacent, I think. So this tournament format involved, building a lot of different agendas, a lot of interesting decks, and I thought that Starks are the faction that really miss this. I don't know, experiment, diversification, whatever you call it. So I was really curious of the decks that will end up in the Stark team. Was hesitant to stay. I was not involved in the agenda trades as such. I think I was first approached by Marco, who asked me if I'm willing to join the Baratheon team. And my impression was that, knowing Marek, I know that he's a proactive player. He likes Raj decks. So obviously I thought that the swap will be between Marco and myself. But it kind of fizzled out. And then Sophie approached me, notifying me that, well, Baratheon team is eyeing me. And it's a good trade for both of the teams, because I think that the trade of the agenda players was really even, really fair. Stark received the agendas they really liked. Baratheon received the agendas they really like. And I just said, okay, whatever. I like playing Baratheon. I take one for the start team. Yeah, and there I was with you.
Yeah, so originally Connor was informed us, I think, that he was interested in possibly moving to Stark, and the trade was going to be Connor for Victor. But then we also had Elise, who of course played a lot of Stark and no Baratheon before, and it was, I think, good for us to get another player who had some Baratheon experience. So we tried to include that in the trade as well, and of course it ended up a really strong trade for us. With we can show you won, of course, 5 of the 6 games and got the 3 pavilion points for us in the tournament.
Yes. Yeah, this trading, I don't know if anybody knows this. First, there were some plans to have a swap between different teams like Greyjoy and Stark, but Greyjoy has so high demand, so unacceptable questions, and that's why it failed. And yeah, we come to another agreement.
Yeah, I think Stefan was the player from the Greyjoy team that we were interested, of course, in trading for, but they didn't want to lose him. He is such a beloved character, of course, that they wanted to keep him in the team, and then they offered something like they would take Filthy and Crossing from us, and they would give us 2 agendas that were not really that impressive, so it was not worth proceeding with that. Yeah, and in the end, we just traded with Stark, of course, and so yeah, we needed to. There was the deadline approaching for that swap of the 3 agendas that we had to do after we got Peter in the team, and we decided to basically do that together to get the trade through and then see what would be left for us, and we would then pick the 3 agendas along with that. And yeah, I think it's a real advantage in this format, of course, to make the trades to get the favorable agendas, and I think it made a difference in the end. Some teams were not able to do that, but Stark and us, we of course traded a lot of agendas. I think there were 9 we traded, so it was the biggest trade of the tournament, and I'm not surprised that we ended in the top 2 in the end. Actually, I am slightly surprised because I know some players in our team thought that we shouldn't give Stark Filthy and Crossing because those are 2 really strong agendas for them, but I kind of thought that maybe Stark is not our biggest competition. As you said, they if you check the stats for the factions on the Jousting Pavilion in the last year, everyone had something like 800 games, a bit over that, and for Baratheon none of the agendas really contributed a lot of those games. There was, I think 80 games was the most any agenda had, something like that. And for Stark, I think Filthy and Crossing combined had something like 500 out of the 800 games. So I thought when they are forced to play other stuff, they might struggle in this format. So I thought give them whatever they want. It's not a problem for us, and just concentrate on us getting as much value as we could from that trade for us personally. And in the end, well, it was slightly dangerous because we only just, of course, beat Stark in the last round to finish ahead of them. So I can show you what we ended up trading for. Trade with Stark, here we are. So this is these are the agendas. So it was, I think the 2 regions were involved, and then also it was me from the Baratheon team and Geralt from the Stark team that ended up negotiating this. And yeah, actually, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. No? Okay. So what was I going to say? It turned out that we were really suitable trade partners in the end, because some of the agendas that we really didn't want in the team, as you can see here, so we didn't have a deck for Knights of the Realm, for instance. Barrow-Winter is not really a thing. The Many-Faced God, I think Baratheon is one of the, maybe the only one or one of 2 or 3 factions that don't really have any kind of ambush that would get value from this agenda. So those were the ones that we were willing to trade away. And of course Filthy and Crossing were kind of non-negotiable because they needed them so badly. And then Long Voyage.
Prince is surprising, right? Because I was also surprised about giving out Prince. You normally associate Prince Core Bob is like such an easy to navigate and a powerful deck. But yeah, we gave out Prince at the end, as you can see here.
Yeah, so that was.
I don't know what was the reason behind this. Did Stark ask for Prince?
The original trade was, I think, the first 7 agendas for both teams that you can see here, or the first 6. Are there 9 of them? A bit more actually than 9. So without the last few was the original trade, and then I asked them what they demanded for the extra wars, so that we could have 3 copies of the wars to come, and we needed to pay with the Loof and Prince for that. So I kind of regret that, because in the end, of course, we only won 1 of the games with wars and lost 2, and the Loof and Prince did both win. So having extra copies of those would have been better, I think. So that was, I guess, my mistake trading for that in the end.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember being a large pain in the Discord chat, because I was really fighting against the trade of Reigns, because that was one of my primary weird decks that I was playing. But I think the team took pity on me later and just grabbed an extra agenda anyway for me to play.
Yeah, it was very high on their wish list, so for us to get everything we wanted, we couldn't really deny them Reigns. So they wanted this, and Sea of Blood was high on the list for them. Those first 6, I guess, were those that they wanted, and then we did a few trades towards the end with just some random stuff like Knights of the Realm and the banners. So the banners were worrying me in Baratheon a bit, because you have to play. Okay, the banner stag is just like a no agenda, so there are 7 other banners apart from that, and some factions I felt had a real advantage here. Martell has a deck with most of the banners that you can do, and some of the other factions are better with it. But Baratheon, not so great with the banners, and Stark isn't either, so we couldn't really get rid of any banners with this trade. So Banner Lion was the one they wanted. It's the best banner, I think, in most factions, so we had to give that one away, but couldn't really. They wouldn't even trade Banner Stag for Banner Wolf, for instance. They thought that Stag was a negative agenda for them, and Banner Wolf they would just play as a no agenda, basically. So nothing we could do there, and in the end they gave us an extra Banner Sun that we kind of accepted because we were still hoping that we could make a deck out of that. Yeah, so we had slightly different strategies. They actually wanted to trade some agendas away completely, so that they would have 2 copies of some and no copies of others to make deck building easier. But we had the opposite strategy. I know, Peter, you advocated for keeping as many single copies of agendas as possible to increase our versatility, so to keep Reigns, to keep Sea of Blood, stuff like that. But in the end, we
my
couldn't
deck
keep
building
everything.
philosophy. I know it's harder, but I like the idea of having tech that people don't see, every now and then. I guess that's a similar kind of philosophy for taking the second Mummer's Farce that we had, right? And I think it actually paid off with the stats at the end of the day. A lot of our kind of unorthodox decks ended up doing really well.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. Unfortunately, the one where we had 3 copies, I'll show you that in a second. I can show it to you now. So this is so there are 46 here. These are the agendas we had after the Stark trade. So as you can see, the Banner Kraken, we have 2 copies here. It's actually 2 copies of Banner Sun. This was the very last thing that happened after I took this screenshot. So it's actually 2 copies of Sun. And then at this point we had 3 copies of Mummer's Farce, 3 Assaults, and 3 Valyrian Steel, and those were the ones that we very quickly agreed that we would drop for the agenda swap, because we weren't sure they were the very top agendas. And so we had 3 copies of Cohort of Alliance, Brotherhood, Wars to Come, Summer, and Conclave. Those were the ones that we kind of all agreed were top decks. And with those, actually, I think we won something like 10 out of 18 games, so we didn't do all that well with those, unfortunately. But the ones where we ended up with single copies were really successful. So I guess those that wanted that kind of strategy were proven to be correct in the end.
Yeah, and don't forget the Battle of the Trident. Right now, I remember the tournament. It was the agenda is mine, and Stelios was playing in the first agenda is mine, Battle of the Trident, and in the second tournament I played Battle of the Trident. So we both have a lot of experience with this agenda, and I think with Baratheon it is really nice.
Yeah, we can show you one of those decks later when we go through the actual tournament. Okay, so the last thing we needed to do, obviously, to get the final list of agendas was to pick the 3 that we would swap. So, as I said, we lost Mummer's Farce, Valyrian Steel, and Assault. And at this point, we had no copies of Prince, so that was the one that was highly considered. And we also considered Crossing to get the copy. It's always useful to have. We needed to trade ours away, of course, to Stark. And then I think Aloof and Apart to get our copy back was another option. And Peter wanted Reigns, so we considered that. I personally thought that was a pretty useless one. Didn't have many games recorded on the Jousting Pavilion at all, but we considered it.
Stink.
And the house with the red door. Actually, I suggested that initially as well among our 12 that we would take for the second copy. We didn't end up doing that, but I thought that we should definitely get an extra copy now when we had the chance to swap, especially after getting you, Peter, because I know you played a Black Cells deck out of that, so that's very useful to have an additional copy.
You know, for all the good it did, but you know that's a conversation for when we get to it.
Yeah.
And I think Sea of Blood also. I think Ivailo, you wanted a copy of Sea of Blood with all the Baratheon Neil events because we had to trade ours to Stark.
Yeah.
And
Fancy decisions in the end.
yeah, we actually, one of the suggestions had us get a second green site for free companies, but a lot of you told me that this was not a great idea, that we could get a better deck out of free companies, so we reversed that in the end, which also was the right decision because we did lose the game with green site and we won ours with free companies. Yeah, so I think that's the final list. Then we chose Prince, Reigns, and the extra house with the red door. So we figured, okay, we have one aloof already, so we won't take that. And the one we missed out on that I was kind of sad about, of course, was Crossing. So having no Lord of the Crossing was pretty sad, but yeah, had to sacrifice something in the end. Okay, and then
I was really sad about that.
yeah, I know.
But it was okay.
You should have made a
In the
bigger
end-
stink like I did, Dennis. I was just irritating enough that they finally, you know, acceded to my demands.
Yeah, we're gonna let him have one, you know.
Got to throw him a bone. Throw the American a bone.
Yeah, and then I did some stats that I can show you. So this is a Discord post that I made. So as you can see, these are the stats for all the factions over the last year or so, and it's really even. So everything is between almost 48% and basically just short of 53. Martell was on top, and the bottom one was actually Greyjoy, which is kind of ironic given that in the World Championship that was played, I think, yeah, around a week and a half after this post was made, Greyjoy was the most represented and had a bunch of decks in the cut.
Yeah.
And so this is of course not very relevant for this format because you have to play all of the agendas, and this is where I thought if I checked what would happen if everyone had to play each agenda once and did the stats for that Baratheon would grow a bit. And you can see here, this is the top one here. Suddenly, of course, everyone drops because they only get one entry with their top agendas, and Baratheon immediately goes to the top. I changed some of the numbers for those that, of course, had very few games. I didn't count one win out of one game as 100%. I changed it a little bit. It's explained here in this post, but doesn't really matter.
How
that
did you
much.
do this statistic?
Yeah, so I checked everyone on the Jousting Pavilion, so every faction and agenda combination, and then I just did an average for everyone, and I adjusted a little bit. So those that were that didn't have at least 10 games, I adjusted the actual percentage to depending on what the numbers were, to either 40, 45 or 50%, and this is what we ended up with. And then the second one I did was actually taking into account what agendas everyone had. So I counted those that were 3 copies. I counted them 3 times and deleted everything that the teams actually traded away. And yeah, you're supposed to go up in the percentage after trades, and as you can see, we increased our position by following stats. Mostly we went against stats with Assault, I guess, and had that extra Banner Sun, and took a bit of a gamble with Trident, but mostly we followed the stats. And suddenly the situation is that Baratheon is on top and everyone else is below 50%. Greyjoy and Stark actually are at the bottom, and that's where I thought, okay, we might have an actual chance to win this one, and we might even be the favorites.
This is where your prediction started, of us winning.
Yeah, you didn't say we have an actual chance. You did say we will totally win this for sure.
I did say that, to be fair, yes, and put some pressure on us, I guess. And in the end, it was extremely
Confidence is
close.
key. Come on.
Yeah, and the faction that was actually at the bottom of these stats was our main rival in the end. I thought the main rivals, to be fair, would be Martell and Targaryen, because they had, particularly Martell, had a lot of those options as well with agendas that were decks that existed and were playable. And actually they made some choices to trade for some Knights decks, Banner Rose and Knights of the Realm, stuff like that, that weren't really the top decks, but they made a lot out of those. And this is actually about the time where the restricted list hit them as well. So if they had a plan to play that Wars deck that plays the runs game and the strength increase with the used plots, with the Princess plan and Host of the Boneway and stuff like that, and just try to do that with a bunch of different agendas, that plan was pretty much buried with the restricted list. But I still thought they were strong even with that. And also, Targaryen. Targaryen did kind of have that option, I think, to play burn with multiple agendas, and every time I face the Dothraki stuff, it proves to be really strong. So
Yes.
okay. So we can talk a bit about the game plan, I think. So I can show you the second sheet in this document that we had. So these are the agendas. They are all grayed out now because we updated this throughout the tournament. But we put our names next to the agendas to see who of us was willing to play which agendas, and we had some definite players for some and some potential players, and we needed to make sure that especially those where we had 3 or at least 2 copies, that we had the people to play them. There's some columns here for deck lists and notes that weren't really getting used much in the end, but yeah, this is what we had, and I think this is where our team proved to be really strong, because we kind of had everything covered. I know Dennis was willing to play basically anything that needed to be played if no one else was willing to, and I kind of was willing to do that as well. And we had Peter and Steven, who were not, and even Ivailo, were not really conventional players, so they were willing to play a lot of the slightly weirder stuff that weren't really known decks. And of course Marek, very good with the rush stuff, with Alliance and Cohort, stuff like that. And Stelios as well, and Paweł had their name with some of the stuff that needed playing in the end. And I think this was a really good setup we had in the team.
Yeah, it was. I think it was the key to success, because if you could move back to your first screen, I think Baratheon is the only team that had only one top tier player. When you look at it in like retrospective, right? We have a star player in Luke, this top tier above 60% win rate, but the rest of us, we are decent players, very consistent players, but not necessarily star players. Regardless of this, all of us are comfortable playing Baratheon, and it's like big kudos to Ivailo to gather the team that is maybe not of all of our top players, but we feel really comfortable with Baratheon. Well, and I think that it's proven the key to success.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead if anyone has anything to add.
I'll go then. Yeah, I felt that coming to someone who doesn't really play Baratheon as much, I would soak up a bunch of the, what other people would consider crappy agendas, and I just have as much fun with it. And then actually realizing that some of these decks really do work and are a lot more fun than I initially anticipated. I'm like, okay, this is actually turning into something really great. And then coming into the later portion, just playing even some of the good decks. Like I managed to play Cohort at one point, and that's still good. That's still very, very good. I did notice that a lot of us, like some of us played some of the strong decks, but I think most of us actually played a lot of the really weird decks at some point, or the different decks at some point. And most of us did fairly well with it, which is very surprising, considering you don't see these decks anywhere.
Yeah. We had a lot of options, I
Yeah.
think, if you check the stats. So these
ROI.
stats, yeah, these stats are, you see a lot of this 60%, 50%. These are not, of course, these are from normal tournaments played against the best decks. And in this format, a lot of the games, of course, would be against weirder stuff. You would play against something like, I don't know, Targaryen, Greensight, and decks that were not decks that really existed in competitive play, so even more chance to get results with anything that was remotely decent in Baratheon, which stuff like Darkwing, Dark Words, and Prince that was promised, and those from that group of agendas, I think, were really strong, actually.
It was basically that our weird stuff beat other people's weird stuff. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, and the stats did say that that would happen, yeah, so
Yeah.
definitely something that we were counting on. Okay, so the general plan, I can say, obviously we wanted to win all the matches if we could. That was the way to win the tournament. But getting to 4, of course, is the key. It's a best of 7 match against all the factions. So when we got to 4, we thought that whatever bad stuff we were left with, we would just dump. I guess some of the banners we weren't comfortable with, and we had the green side, the Free Companies, Kingdom of Shadows. But actually, we minimized with the trade. We minimized those bad agendas really well. So there was not all that much to dump. But that was the general plan. And in the end, actually, we had 3 teams, I think, with 5 wins and 2 losses. So in the end, every game mattered. So even fighting for those score lines after one of the teams got to 4 was really important, because the tournament was decided by a couple of wins in the end. And there was some stuff, obviously some mind games going on the Iron Throne. People had a lot of fake profiles to practice, and there was some bluffing going on, publicly playing some stuff that they weren't actually going to play in the games, and we fell for some of that. And other times, of course, we guessed correctly, and I think particularly against Stark we ran into some bad matchups, and also against Lannisters. So those 2 teams really prepared well for us, I think, and on some other occasions we got the better of our opponents. And I have to thank all of the players in the team, of course, that were happy to practice some of the decks. I know Stelios isn't here, played against him a few times, and Marek helped with practice a lot. And Ivailo, I know you had COVID in the middle of the tournament, had to skip a few rounds, but still found time to give us a lot of the practice games. So I think that really contributed to our results in the end.
It helped me.
Yes, it was sometimes really tough, yeah. Family, work, and GOT, so I call it here, and maybe it's not the right position, yeah. Sometimes I feel I'm much more playing than working. Yeah? It was really difficult. Yeah.
Okay,
but
so
also challenging again.
Yes. Can I be heard?
Yes, you can be heard. Go ahead.
And nothing.
Okay.
Just want to thank to Ivailo for his training games. He was really helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, and thanks to you, Marek, as well. I think I played with you the most out of any player from this team. I played against Peter as well, if I forgot to mention it earlier, and not sure if I played against practiced with anyone else, but I might have done over the course of the tournament. And I did play some games publicly on the Iron Throne as well. I invested some time into bluffing, played some 6 games with Kohor ahead of my start game, and then they still guessed that I would play Summer and completely countered my deck. So that was a giant waste of time, but okay, happens.
They know you too well, all right?
Okay, so I guess the second half of our stream here, we can go through the tournament and talk about some of the decks. So some of the games. I mean, we can go through all of the games basically. Just have a few words, and we'll focus on some of the decks that I think are the most interesting. So actually, most of the games you can see on YouTube. You can check my channel. So there are 37 of our 49 games there, and some of the games, particularly those that I was involved in that I couldn't record myself, you can find on the White Walkers channel, and some on the Friendly Open channel that was streamed by Zini and his team. And I think all in all there are 45 out of 49 that were at least partially recorded in the end, that you can find online. If you check the videos on my channel, there are some links to the other games in the description of those. And yeah, just missed 4 in the end. I think 2 of those were actually the players requested that they not be streamed, so we couldn't record 2 of them. And then 1 was scheduled last minute and I missed it. And the last one, I think, was I overslept, got the time wrong, and missed it. So that was my bad on the last one. But I think we did a nice job, and most of you joined me on commentary as well at some point. So thanks a lot for that. I invited some of the players from our opponents as well to join us, and it was really nice to be able to do all of that. Wasn't the plan initially, but in the end, just after round 1, I decided just to try to systematically record anything I could, and I think having won the tournament, it's really nice to have all of those games to look back on.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a really nice work. I was wondering, how did you manage all this? Working, family, I don't know, your normal stuff, and so many streams. Really, really great job. Thank you, Mia.
I think that's the time to say thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I think most of the stuff happened towards the weekend, so it wasn't really that difficult to record. I got up at some weird hours a couple of days, 5 a.m. and even 9 a.m. for me is a bit early, but luckily didn't really have that many weird games during the week, for instance, where I wouldn't be able to record them. So that worked out pretty well.
So let's go to the games.
Yes, let's do. So we have how shall we do this? I can just stay on this screen. So we had 7
Maybe
matches.
not the losses.
Well, I think there are a couple interesting talking points there, so we'll see. I have some of the decks here bookmarked from the games that were used, so those that I have I can show on the screen if there's something interesting, and we can go through each game, and the player involved, I guess, can say a few words if they can remember the game. I watched, as I said, I recorded most of them, so I watched most of them as well, and I'll try to remember some stuff if you can't. And so Tyrell was the first faction we got paired with, and this was, I think, not the easiest but not the hardest matchup. For me personally, the one thing that I dislike about facing Tyrell is that they have such an easy job of playing political disaster in their decks because of the 2 unique economy locations, the Arbor and Redwine Straits, and they can use Bounty of High Garden as well. That's event-based economy, so anything with a huge number of locations, any deck that plays Throne and Chamber basically is that, would hurt against Tyrell. So that's the one thing I was worried about, and some ambush stuff as well that my personal playstyle doesn't like, because I like to kneel the key characters. But generally Tyrell is not the worst opponent we had, and yeah, we can go through the game. So the first one, let's move to here. The first one was Peter's game, where you played Banner of the Wolf against Tyrell Fate Militant.
Yeah, this was one of my my weird kind of Barra decks that I've published. I had this deck kind of rolling around in my head. I played it, I think it was almost like 4 years ago. But since Dilemma came out, it became even better. So essentially, the premise of this deck is to play Team Baratheon, the big kneeling one, every single turn.
Yeah.
I think I managed to get her off twice in a row during this game. I could have done it 3 times if I really wanted to be Shaga, but I decided to win instead. Essentially, the main kind of mechanic that I wanted to get to go with Banner Wolf is Jane Pool, because essentially Jane Pool, it's not a very commonly played card, but if you sacrifice her, you can pull a lady out of the discard pile, and I would sacrifice Celise to get her off the board with the sacrifice to the Red God, which would also fetch another Celise, or, you know, I would use things like, what's it called, Fallen from Favor, to go second and have enough money and take her off the board and play her again if I have Jane Pool in hand. So it's a funny deck once it starts working. But yeah, this was a pretty straightforward match, at least. Fortunately, I think I was playing against Icarus, Ben Cotton. He did not run a lot of ladies, and that was my main concern. Like, Tyrell can have a lot of ladies, and if they run a lady deck, it becomes very hard because I start kneeling more my own characters than his. But he did not run a lady deck, so I was very lucky there. And yeah, it was a pretty straightforward game. So
Yeah,
that's really all I have to say about it.
The video is pretty short as well. So at the beginning, I was slightly worried, maybe for 1 round or a round and a half, and then the Celestis started to come in, and it was pretty.
I admit, I did not expect. Like, he was running Faith Militant, and I did not expect March to the Wall in a Faith Militant deck. So. I thought I was safe leading. I had Elisa I set up because I didn't have a great hand for setup, so I just put out Elisa, and I think it was either an Econ. I think it might have been like a Rose Road and a Throne. But, you know, it is what it is. So it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, so once again, to everyone, you can find all of these games on my YouTube channel. There is a playlist. I'll try to get, actually... I'll try to fix the titles. It's just some generic round 1, game 2 or something like that. It says try to get the players' names and maybe the decks into the titles as well to make navigating through that a little bit easier. Okay, and then second game we did not see. So Dennis, you played against Rebecca. This was requested not to be streamed, so it was the Conclave against Free Folk. And I think this one we did kind of guess because we saw her practicing Free Folk online, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. And as you said, she asked me to for the game to not be streamed and also not be watched on the Iron Throne, because she didn't really play for a long time, and she made some mistakes in the practice games. She didn't want to show. But yeah, I think she didn't make that many mistakes in our real game, and it was tough because Free Folk can have 3-claim military or intrigue challenge in the beginning, and then 3-claim power challenge in the end. So it was a really close game. To be honest, I'm not that good in remembering my games, especially if I won them. I remember most of the games I lost and what I did wrong there. But yeah, I'm not the best at remembering the games.
Yeah, we'll get
the
to
games
those.
I won.
We'll get to those soon. Don't worry.
But as I said, it was close, and I was really happy when it was over and I won it.
All right, and then third game was Steven's game. So this one is our pick, I think.
Speaking of losses,
from round 1. Yeah, we'll have a look at this deck because it's a chance to have a look at that Mammer Spars deck, and there was an infamous moment in that game, Steven. So go ahead, take us through it.
All right, so I immediately wanted to start with Mamas because I was, we were talking about it a lot in our chats, and I was just excited to play it. And I versed Lannister, who is ironically a very, very good Tyrell player, and I believe he ended up playing Kingsguard.
Yes, it was White Book.
White Book, Tyrell White Book. Yep, Tyrell White Book. And so I expected, okay, this is going to be a tough game to start off, and it was. He got a really good start, really good early lead, and I just had to play it out. I didn't really see my key cards until mid game. However, I did manage to control the board, and I got his board down to, I think, 1 or 2 characters. One of them being the new Jaime Lannister from Bran the Builder. For those who don't know, this is a Jaime Lannister who sort of goes against the regular convention of Kingsguards, where he's got a forced reaction. If a character enters play during the challenges phase, he can stand himself and discard that character before that character has any reactions, before anything happens. It's all very, very quick. So he was at about 13 power. I'd just done a few challenges. And I think I was about 7 power, something like that. And I had a Balerion in hand who, as everyone may know, has Ambush 2. He did some challenges with Jaime. He then, I passed to him. He did a challenge with Jaime. I don't even know how I did, but I clicked on Balerion at some point, which ambushed him into play, which automatically stood Jaime and discarded Balerion. He was surprised by this as well, did a challenge and won the game.
Yeah.
By the time when he was initiating the challenge, I was a bit confused. I'm like, how is Jaime standing? Huge blunder by me, obviously, and it did feel like after that round, I really did feel like this deck was going to do what it meant to do. Because I had a few gold. I had Shagwell in play. I had a few gold on him. I had one of the big key combos is Anguy the Archer with a Florian and Jonquil on him. As long as you have 1 gold on Anguy at that point, he copies everyone's keywords, pretty much, with Shagwell as well. So, Gendry's giving him Renown. If Gendry has a Warhammer on him, he's also giving him Intimidate. Mama's Fast is giving him +1 strength for every card that's on him. There's multiple things stacking up on top. Insight from the High Guard and Jesters as well. I had him ready to go, and then, I fat-fingered a single button. Bit unfortunate, but Lannister played a fantastic game, so he still deserved the win. I'm not taking that away from it in any way. But yeah, I was a bit sad after that.
Yeah, and this is I played this a bit in testing as well. I'm not sure if this is the exact list. Maybe it is, and it's a really fun deck. I think I won most of the games and goes really quickly. So I think it was fair enough to include this. It's a really nice one.
Yeah.
Fortunately, not to be on this occasion. We did lose both games. The second one was tough to take. We'll get to it. It was really a tough matchup that they kind of guessed. But this one, I think, had more of a chance. But against one of the strongest players as well, so not a huge deal to lose that one. But it did put some pressure on me. I had to. It was 2-1 at this point, so I played Johannes, and it was important to win that one. And I played my Bara Wars deck that I played in the Italian Nationals. Basically, is a kind of a rush deck that wants to get the White Ravens with Summer Hall to get some quick power in dominance. And then if it doesn't work, it turns into a Neil deck with Throne in Chamber and the Robert, the control version of Robert. And I played against Tyrell Kohor, and game was quite interesting actually. Went to time, so there was a moment I think when Johannes misplayed a bit in might have been round 1 when I had Gendry and I didn't get the throne. So it was really dangerous for the whole thing to fall apart, because he would sacrifice himself by not winning dominance, and then he did some work with those cohort triggers, had some sweet sleep to blank my traitor and traded it away or something, and then Randall Tarley that was standing failed to win dominance, of course, because he had traitor to the crown. And then the rest of the game was really close, went to time, and there was actually a pretty interesting moment there where I had Valar Morghulis in the deck, and the game was just about to get something over 50 minutes, so I was it was something like 11-11, and most of his power was on Randall Tarley, so I thought, okay, just play Morghulis. He didn't have a bodyguard, and if I kill him, okay, even if he gets a better board state and gets some power, no way he's beating me before time expires. And then he reveals, compelled by the faith, and puts all the power onto his faction card. And I have my Morgulis that kills everything. And luckily I did top deck Imri that round, so he was just used immediately to nil his one character that he could put out, and then Throne Chamber got me past. Got me ahead on power when it expired. Not sure what would have happened without Imri. It was a really close one, but that was one of those moments where I almost screamed in horror after failing with that Morgulis play.
Yeah, so you see, it's in very many games, if you have the luck, you will win. Yeah, and if you're unlucky, you lose.
Yeah, definitely happens. Okay, and then we had Ivailo's game, I think. Was game 5, so this was our match point. If we won this one, we won the match. And Ivailo, you played Banner Stag, so we just used this one immediately, basically as a non-agenda. And I think you played a nil deck with it against Tyrell Kingdom of Shadows.
Yes, it was your kneeling deck, and when I was training some games, everybody asked me, "Are you sure?" Banner stack and mocking, but it was a really, I think, interesting game, and I enjoyed it really much because it was 8-0 against us, I think, and then I was able, to change the game, to switch it, and finally also with Celise and higher on the Iron Throne, to win the game. One of my best ones.
Yeah, Blackwater Bay we had, and we were expecting, I think, Mammer's Farce. Your opponent played Mammer's Farce in one of the recent tournaments, maybe even the World Championship, and we thought maybe, okay, that those fools would kneel really easily. And then Kingdom of Shadows, of course, where you have lots of characters coming in the challenger space that avoid the marshalling phase kneel, and that was some really bad advice, I think, from me to suggest that Blackwater Bay deck, but in the end, I think the Kingdom of Shadows agenda isn't really what it used to be, because it used to be you had to include almost all the characters with the Shadow keyword and to get the reduction, and you included that good stuff package, but now you have to play some more in-faction synergies, and I think the opponent actually on a couple of occasions had to pay 3 gold to put stuff in Shadows because he controlled no in-faction characters in play, and wasn't that strong as it would have been, for instance, before the redesigns. Okay, so we won that one.
And then I played.
Yes, your game was with Bara Alliance against Tyrell Knights of the Hollow Hill. And I think this one we don't have on record, do we? Because the opponent requested that we don't stream it. But I think it was a pretty quick kill.
Yeah, I played Bara Alliance and against Tyrell Knights of the Hollow Hill. I made screens of the phases of the game that you can check on our Discord channel.
Okay.
So
let me see if I can put
there was,
those. Yes, I can.
There was Ned Azor. So
actually,
it's the
something
best
weird.
combination. It's the best combination in this deck when your Ned gets Azor. And he had some supporters, ladies supporters, Salisi and Melisandre, and Priest get rid of another copy of Mina Tyrell. So
yeah, those are the screenshots we have. So as you can see,
Right.
in round 3 it was already over with all the power on the characters and some on the faction card as well. Yeah, I guess Knights of the Hollow Hill is too slow. Starts without setup and then immediately under pressure with the Cohor.
And
Did you manage to? Yeah, did you
Wildfire.
manage to get the double bro combos between Fast Bob and Fast Faseri? Not this game, huh?
Not this game, according
That's the
to the
main
screenshots.
idea.
I had another game when I trained where I put into play Ned, Horp, and both Bara Kings. That was insane.
Yeah, so that's one of the alliances we used. The other one, of course, was with Banner Rose instead of the Banner Wolf. But this one's really fast. I think I played against it way back against Tamas in one of the tournaments, and he did have the fast bomb, and I didn't play on that occasion.
Tamas played the rush deck. You're kidding.
Yeah, he did play Baratheon for a while,
Yeah.
for a couple of tournaments.
Remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last game, so we had 5-1 at this point. The last game, Stelios played. He played Ban of the Watch. This was one to get rid of because wasn't a good one for us, and no one really was interested in playing it. And he played against Emil's Tyrell Valyrian Steel. And I can tell you in that game that he played a bunch of builders. It was basically a builder's deck, anything that was non-loyal. And he
did run In the Name of Your King, though.
did he?
He did.
Okay.
That was the only bearer card I saw. I watched that match.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. It's just basically like a wall defense deck, and then Emil's had the Iron Throne, the Nope Throne in play immediately, and just called the wall every single round. And I think Stelios said later that he had the wall in the opening hand, so could never play that. And it was a real grind, actually. I think it went to time and took a long time for Emils to take control of the game. But I think if Stelios found if there wasn't that Nope Throne in play, he would have won that one with the wall defense deck. Yeah, and that was round 1. So good start for us. And in the second one, of course, we played against Night's Watch. And this one I was confident about because Night's Watch is traditionally the most favorable opponent for Baratheon. You can play Neil decks against it all day long, and should be pretty successful. And what was the order here?
Safe.
Yeah, you played
Locations
first, Marek. You played Cohor this time against Night's Watch Cohor, and I think this was another quick one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Or actually,
You-
was that the one where I think it went to time and then you played it out anyway after time expired just for fun? So maybe it wasn't that quick, or maybe I'm mistaking that for a different game.
But it was. I didn't expect a fast deck from Nightwatch, but I ended up winning.
Yeah, and good start for us in second round as well. And then we played, we had Peter's game. That was another marathon, actually. This was the longest game of the tournament, I'm pretty sure. It was something like an hour and 40. I think you didn't have a time limit, and then there was...
Fortunately.
Yeah, some disconnections as well. I edited that out in the final video. And you played Reigns against Night's Watch Crossing, didn't you?
It was Night's Watch Cohor, actually.
Oh, was it? Okay, then I
Yeah, it was Cohor.
wrote it down.
Yeah, the length of it was probably a above average length game without the disconnections, because we did go, I think, 8 plots. But the problem was the connection on Iron Throne that night was just crippling. It was taking almost like a lag of 20 to 25 seconds to actually, respond to anything. But this is where I played my Reigns deck that I fought for, and it is a Smuggler's deck. It's very aggro. and I was it did exactly what I wanted it to. So, but there's a lot of innate stealth, a lot of intrigue, and with the intrigue and military icons the smugglers give, I have a lot of events like put to the sword and put to the torch in this one. And my big misplay was I killed Jon Snow with a put to the sword when what's his name? Craster was on the board when I should have just killed Craster and and then forced him to claim either Jon Snow or Gren, but he was able to sack Craster and bring Jon Snow back into play standing, which, made it a little longer. But it was it went pretty well. The deck did its job, especially after the first couple rounds.
Yeah, I think he resisted for as long as he could, and then he ran into his own Morghulis, I think, and that was pretty much.
Yeah, there was a lot of there was just a lot of aggro pressure, and he couldn't maintain it, his board presence without it.
Yeah, so good call in the end to include this Reigns deck. So if you like, you can tell us a bit more about it. I'll take a quick toilet break in the meantime.
Yeah, certainly. So I did take this deck to the World Championship. I went 3-3, so it's not a top tier deck, but the main mechanics in this deck are between the smugglers, and then you have a lot of kind of keyword granting between Lysini galleys, which will grant stealth to captains and smugglers. And then you will have warhammers that will grant strength to like little smugglers like the Cell-Sails, or intimidate to bigger ones like Valyrian's crew. So there's a lot of I would get a lot of unopposed intrigue challenges happening, and unlike other kind of Bara Reigns attempts I've had with Rehalor, I'd never had any trouble triggering the agenda here. So it was a very I feel it to be a pretty consistent deck. And that's why I really fought for it. But yeah.
Why is this only mid-range?
I would say it is mid-range, just because it's not super fast. It's very brawly, I would say. But it's not like a grind deck, despite that last match that happened.
Mm-hmm. So collecting.
But you're playing the Salador Sun, the Fury of the Storm. You said it's an attrition deck. I was thinking that you're gonna go with the bring the weapon attachment when you win the challenge with Pinch of Powder. Right. I think that's an option.
That could be an option. I just found the Fury of the Storm to be really flexible in the fact that I'm sorry, my dog is going nuts in the background. But I found him really flexible with the economy that he presented. He was a very good counter to the whole stronghold meta that appeared with
you're
Brandon
facing
Builder.
Night's Watch, right? You're facing Night's Watch. Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's also a factor. And also, this deck is actually very light on power icons. So the fact that he has a power icon definitely helped a lot. And a stealthable one at that. So essentially, if wherever I could grant, stealth or intimidate, it gained me a lot of control that I needed, because I didn't run core Melisandre. I ran the Fury of the Storm Melisandre here too, because she was 5 strength and had stealth.
Yeah, you have Corain for control, and of course one copy of Imri Floret, regardless whatever archetype.
It must be included.
There it is. Yeah.
Hey, we all know how useful he is if you can find him at the right time. Right?
Oh, he is amazing. Also,
I
honestly think it's the most Nedley thing ever if you can use Imri Florent on a turn that you flip Wildfire Assault.
Yeah.
I think that's very Nedley.
Yeah, I was when I didn't see the full game here, but when I saw you playing this and it just had Corain and had the newish Cell-Sails as well. Super excited to see it, because I just love smugglers, but there hasn't been a deck that's worked. This is weird enough that I feel like it does work.
I was like, and it has I had a really good win rate on it online. In the World Championships, the matches I lost, I wasn't unhappy. I lost to 3 of the people in the cut, and it was like Radek. It was Radek with his Lanny Kraken, and that was a very close match. Lynn with his Tyrell White Swords, which was not particularly close, but that's just a bad matchup for this deck. Yeah. And then it was one of the I forgot. It was one of the players from the Chinese meta who was running the kind of Greyjoy Fealty Buzzsaw, and I feel like this is typically good against Greyjoy Fealty. It's just The problem was, Mad King's command limits their warships, but it puts it back into the deck. They were running Double Brand the Builder, right? And they were able to fetch them again, and that was just so infuriating, right?
Yeah.
But
So
I did get a little kind of notch in my belt. I beat Reinhardt's crossing deck at Worlds, and that's when Dennis congratulated me, saying, "Okay, maybe smugglers aren't a joke." I'm like, "Yes, that's right."
So what do they need right now? I mean, Sea Sail is an awesome card, the new one. The card draw? I think
The draw is I really am only running exchange. So yeah, some other form of draw would be great. I think and I keep pushing Miha here to make a better card. The new Smuggler's Attachment, the King of the Narrow Sea, I think that's going to provide a lot of versatility and giving ambush to smugglers, because that would then open me up to running something like the First Snow of Winter, which is really good in Rain's decks.
Well, yeah, I'm looking forward, because Rias and myself were actually running through the initial card list, and when we saw the ones that sort of approve of what goes through and not in the end, we saw a smuggler card and we're like, yes, we need something. We need this. This is great. I love ambush. Let's do it. So
I think it's amazing. Yeah, because what that would enable is the fact that I can return smugglers to hand. It allows me to repeatedly trigger Salvador San, because the only way I can do that currently is with Davos when he dies. And then on top of that, I can bring a Cell Sail back to hand, either from the card itself or with First Snow of Winter, and then I play him again to put the gold back on, because having that stand of the Cell Sails is it's really, really key, because it allows you to do multiple Corraine triggers, or multiple challenges, like with a big smuggler like Valyrian's Crew. I could trigger the agenda with Valyrian's Crew, I could stand him, and then I could swing for military and then do something like I put to the sword.
Definitely, yeah.
It's really it can be, it's deceptively aggressive, and you don't usually see this at Baratheon, so it's a very surprising thing when people come in. Also, you see lots of intrigue and military icons coming at them, and they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like this deck. It's probably one of my favorite decks I've made in a while.
So, yeah, I'm back. Hopefully you didn't say anything that would get me banned while I was gone or something like that.
Oh, I hope. As long as the moderators don't mind people geeking about smugglers, I think we're okay.
Yeah, I like smugglers myself, definitely. Played it as Banner Kraken a bit, just to get those Cell Sails more gold with the Saltcliff Sailors. But it didn't really prove worth it, because it kind of turns into a Koran and Nil deck. Basically, that's the one that's really worth it to reuse, but lacking some other tools.
If you have the cards out, he is just the most tilting card ever to people. Like, it just shuts decks down. The fact with Cell Sails allows you to use them multiple times in a round, potentially, is just crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so if we continue with our tournament report, so we are at game 3 now against Night's Watch. So this is the one that Stelios played, and this is a really interesting one. It looked like it would be one of the easiest wins, but then turned into a real thriller towards the end. He played aloof and apart against Night's Watch Valyrian Steel, and he was on something like 12 power and played You Win or You Die to close it. He had a bunch of renown in play as well, and I think he had the Starry Sept. And he went first and used the Red Priest in marshalling, so we all thought, okay, he's going to remove whatever would prevent him from not being able to basically push that power challenge through, and took something random in the end. So we thought, okay, there is nothing in hand, he has this 1/1, and then it turns out that he overlooked first builder, and that went on Jon Snow and gave him the power icon. So Magnus was able to defend the power challenge, and Stelios just missed out on the win in that round, and then it could have gone really downhill, but fortunately after the You Win or You Die, he did I think he top decked the big army, the King Stannis' host, and in the end it didn't matter, but that was certainly one of the big moments that we had, where things could have changed pretty dramatically. and that was 3-0 basically in this round. So I had the first match point. I played against Sam Bratz, who is of course I think a double former world champion, and definitely not a player you want to draw. And I played Knights of the Hollow Hill. I should have that somewhere. This one. Against Banner Dragon. And this was another one of those occasions that we saw almost no in-faction cards. It was just, I think, the Old Forest Hunter to throw stuff into the discard pile, and then it was the Targaryen mercenaries with Tyrion that just put stuff into play that way. And it was a really tough game. I know I sacrificed all of my power early on just to get the 6 cards with Set Down or Deeds to help me stay in the game. Had some milks at the right time to slow him down, and then it turned around towards the end. I think it was when he played You Win or You Die, and I went first. I had a chance, because most of the board was knelt, I had a chance to do a couple of challenges, and I did, to get 2 power on my faction card, and I thought, okay, just don't lose the 2 claim power back. And then somehow I left standing Robert with 5 strength against his 3 strength Tyrion, I think. And somehow even though I kept checking the discard pile the whole game for stuff that could come in, I missed Missandei there with Flea Bottom, and he was able to do the power challenge back and take what little I had. And I thought, okay, this is not going to go well for me in the end. And then it was a really slow game. I think only a few rounds, maybe 4 rounds were played before we reached time, and I played Harris. He had some difficult choices because he had power on characters that were knelt, and he decided to not to keep those, and in the end went, I think, 8-3 in his favor before challenges in the final round. And that's where I took something like 5 minutes. It was streamed. You can see nothing happening for 5 minutes where I calculated if there was any hope to come back into that game. And I figured it was 10-3 because that's what it was before the power on characters left play, and couldn't find a way. And then suddenly it hit me, okay, it's actually 8-3. I have a guaranteed win, and just wasted everyone's time. I had some Neil and a Traitor to the Crown and Throne and Chamber and a Milk for, I think he had that character, is it Shave Pate or something like that can bring something into play. Had a Milk for that, and basically he couldn't really push anything through, and I would just win with Throne and Chamber. So that was a pretty dramatic one. And yeah, we won this one already after 4 games. And then the rest we could choose some of the less favorable agendas for us. And I think, Steven, you played in round 5 against Knights of the Realm with the Fate Militant. And this was, I think we had 2 games running at the same time. So you were kind enough to record this one for us from your perspective, and then I added commentary. And the thing I missed actually was that you were playing around his agenda the whole time. He actually was struggling to have more knights on the board than you did, and you managed to block his draw a little bit in that game.
Yeah, you know, I remember like this game was, I was slowly ahead most of it. I specifically remember he had, for some reason, he had a Lynn Corbray who was like a Voltron almost. He had, you know, Spawn to the Watch, Longclaw, a few other things on him, as well as Jeremy Riker making him a permanent Tricon. And I think he had his attachment as well, which was, he was giving him +1 strength for each neutral location. And the entire time I was just trying to get past him, really. But the draw that I was getting from what's his name? From Bonifer the Good, yeah, was just outmatching the fact that, because I also luckily drew my very few knights in this deck with Bonifer, with the Courtney Penrose and Davos. And I was able to sort of block him for a few turns from drawing 3 cards. He did draw 2. I think at one turn he may have drawn 1, potentially. And that just worked out really well. A secret MVP of this deck, though, was definitely Brothers Robes. I got a Brothers Robes onto. I thought it would be useful, especially with strongholds being so huge at the moment. Although ironically, it didn't really hit his locations. It hit his attachments quite often. I just slapped that onto Bonner for the Good. I think turn 1 or turn 2, and I just kept on getting rid of the strength pump that he was getting from Lady Forlorn. That's the attachment he had. And it allowed me to get past and actually do the challenges that I needed to do. Yeah, I think in the end as well, I almost didn't win, but I just remembered last second that my Stormland fiefdoms can give him move a power from his characters to his faction card. Because I believe he had like 0. I think he had 0 clan power on his faction card at the time, and so I did that just before triggering, like as a defender action, just before triggering Faith Militant to win. So, but it was a good game. It was mostly ahead in my favor though.
Yeah, and I think this Fate Militant, the 7 characters, the whole package really works really well in Baratheon these days because of I think the new army. So Bonifer has existed for some time now, but there weren't that many characters that would gain insight. But now with the Holy 100 as well, there's just potential for some mass draw when you do challenges, and it feeds the hand really nicely. And I think we used some of that package in the Battle of the Trident as well, so we can show you that later.
Yeah, and the 7-point star also got a little bit of use here with turning some of my Baratheon characters into the 7 trait. Again, for Bonner for the Good to draw, and as well getting the strength pump from Holy 100. It was a surprisingly useful card. You didn't really use it for the marshalling action, but yeah.
Yeah, and that was 5 wins, and together with this one, I think Dennis also played. So you played Barasan against Night's Watch Banner of the Stag, and I know we were struggling a bit with Barasan. I tested it myself before the tournament. I played it in 2 friendly open events, and I think won 2 games out of 8. So I played some of those basically Cancer Lancer mechanics and the icon control, and it never seemed to work. But you played this one a little differently, didn't you?
Yeah, as you said, we figured out in testing that maybe Barasan isn't the best option, and as we had 2 copies of it, we decided to spend 1 now when we already won, and see for the other one if we maybe find a deck that will work. And so I decided to not play the cancer or the attachments with the icon removal, because maybe it's not that good against Night's Watch. So I just played some Sand Steeds and Summer Bloods to maybe outrush the passive power of Night's Watch. And I think I draw 2 Sand Steeds in my starting hand, or maybe round 1, and had the 3rd one in round 1 or 2. So I got 3 power every round, and I think I would have won this way if I didn't lay waste. No, how is the name of the big stronghold for Night's Watch? Castle Black. Yeah, he played a Castle Black round 1 Orange setup, and I thought as it's cost 5, it should be really good, so I should get rid of it. And I lay wasted, and he fetched the wall, and I think it was round 1 or something like that. And I think without those 2 powers, I don't know if he had a wall in hand and could have played it out. But if not, I think the 2 powers I gave him from round 1 or 2 were too much, and I shouldn't have done that. But yeah, if you drew the Sand Steed, I think this deck can work, but it's definitely not that good. And I was the lone person losing in this round.
Yeah, it was close. I think he had Throne and Chamber as well to stall a bit more. And
yes,
I think you had Sand Steeds on some characters that couldn't survive the Harris together. So if you put it on a smaller character, maybe you could have kept some more power. And also I think you had Tourney for the King that wasn't that you never revealed. So got to a bit over 10 power, and maybe was a slight chance to push for a win there. But certainly
Tourney for King was definitely in the deck, but I think I didn't.
I think we were more optimistic.
Maybe there was a reason for not playing it.
Yeah, my memory is usually pretty good, but I can't remember everything. Can't remember the exact situation. I think we were definitely more optimistic after this game that the Banner Sun could be good in the second game. We used it, and it turned out that we did win that one, but slightly different deck though. And
with
then
a different deck, yes.
yeah, then Paweł played last and used his Banner of the Rose against Night's Watch Sea of Blood. I think that's one we have as well. I can show you. And
yeah, this deck has a special place in my heart. Actually, this is the very first deck that I brought to any sort of competitive tournament ever. It was a Polish Cup, I think 15 players, and I managed to get to the final with some variation of this deck, beating Radek to the final, which is always it's a great achievement. Well, basically it's a Tronen's Chamber deck focused on board control. I think I played it originally in the time when Greyjoy was a thing, and Targ Valyrian Steel was a thing. So the big centerpiece of the deck is obviously Delena Florent and all the Tyrell tech that removes characters from the challenge, which effectively with Delena Florent it means that it's a new event. It's a new thing to do, right? They cannot stand with Delena, so you remove them and they don't stand. So that's the main idea. There are 3 offers of the pitch, 3 shrewd diplomats. You like to go second with this deck, which is really helpful if you. I think I opened. I think this is not the most up-to-date version of this deck. You open Maiden with this to get your two initiative boosts. So you make sure that you go second in each phase. You have 2 non-kneelers left and right. And you basically keep control of the board state, and you win with the Throne and Chamber IKEA combo. Interesting thing about this game was that I couldn't get Delena on board, which is the centerpiece. I think she was pillaged by one of Hannes's wildling character. I don't know what character was it. But after pillaging Delena Floret, he played the 2-cost Night's Watch event. What's the name? Bound to the Wall?
yeah,
I think so.
yeah, got her in play on his side.
On his side. So straight away, okay, take Delena. I don't care on whose side Delena. I just need her on the table. And after this round, when Hannes realized like what my deck is doing, he very eloquently put it like, I think I fucked myself with this trigger, and he indeed fucked himself with Delena on board and all the removal tech. I think it was a pretty straightforward game, straightforward win for me.
At the World Championship in 2019, one of my really good buddies, he ran a Delena deck out of Tyrell, and we played it during Melee, and I was running Baratheon. I also had Delena, and he couldn't find his Delena, but I found mine, so I put my Delena out, and he was just removing everybody from all these challenges in Melee. It was cancerous.
Yeah, Knights of Sea of Blood, we actually talked about, I think there were 3 of us on commentary for that one. We discussed that this was likely a decent deck for them, so we were surprised that they used it in Game 7 where they had already lost. Yeah, but they couldn't beat us anyway.
Yeah, I was expecting Hannes to play any sort of an aggressive kind of. He's an aggressive player, so when faced with such a heavy board control, I don't think that he stood a chance really.
Yeah, and then round 3 was against Lannister, so this is our first defeat. We had 5-2 in round 1, 6-1 in round 2, so I guess we were really confident, maybe a bit overconfident, but this is a faction I strongly dislike because they have so many characters potentially coming in beyond the marshalling phase, and they have all the cancels, so if you're relying on big triggers like Silisi or Robert, it's possibly not going through. So was not looking forward to this one.
I was very happy to miss playing Lannister.
Yeah, if I could pick one faction to avoid, I think it would have been Lannister or Stark as well, but we didn't know in advance, unfortunately. And we started with Dennis on this occasion, and we felt like this was one of the key games because somehow he drew Robert Charvat, who was, I think, Dennis having lost in round 2 was towards the bottom actually in the rankings, and really unlucky to draw Robert. But we thought if we could win that one, maybe we have a decent chance here. And you did win, Dennis, didn't you? But we left you down after that. It was
I did, and
against Lenny Kraken.
yes, and as you said, I wasn't happy when I saw that I have to play Robert being on the bottom of our ranking, but Robert said the same to me, that he also didn't expect to play me that far down in the ranking. Yeah, I decided just to play the best deck I think I have in Baratheon. I think I switched for sure one getting no gold in the after the challenge phase, after the martial phase.
Supporting the
faith. There was for sure one supporting the face because I expected maybe some some shadow or jumper or stuff like that. And it was a good ad. Yeah, I think this was one of my one of the games I'm most proud of in this tournament because Robert is a very good player. Lenny Kraken is a very annoying deck, but it worked out pretty well. I think it was never. I was always in control. I think I won. I don't know if it was 15-0 or 15-1 or 15-2, but I felt under pressure the whole game. Even when I watched it again on stream, I think I never really was. But yeah, I felt under pressure the whole game.
Yeah,
it was thrilling.
Looked really comfortable actually. And we were happy to get rid of their Lenny Kraken. They had 3 copies, but we thought, okay, maybe now they would be discouraged from playing it. This was a deck that, according to statistics, was probably the best in the game. It won something like 2/3 of the games on Jousting Pavilion with a huge sample size, and the restricted list pretty much left it alone. The latest one, of course, addressed it, but not the one that came out before the 8 Regents tournament. And it was a good win, and I thought, okay, maybe we have a decent chance here, but then went downhill really quickly. So who played second? I think it was Victor played second. So he played Free Folk against Lenny Wolf, and so Victor, we got in the trade. He is probably the least experienced player in the tournament. He had no games, no profile on the Jousting Pavilion at all before it started. So these are his only 2 recorded games, and of course it's pretty harsh because you have such a strong feel in this one. Everywhere you look, there are players that have won tournaments, and they will of course play really strongly. And the deck building, of course, when done in groups, is really strong. And Victor was up against it, so he played Free Folk, and even if he played optimally, he was up against it because the military pressure that you need in that deck, of course, was countered. I think the opponent had Sir Gregor Clegane in play immediately with the 10 strength military, and I think possibly Tywin, the pillage Tywin as well, and those mechanics that put stuff in your dead pile just by pillaging. And it was really tough. I think Victor could have made it more of a game if he attacked more, because it would have forced the opponent to just defend to avoid losing military. But in the end, was a tough game for us, where we didn't really have much chance. And then Stelios played next. He played Bara Wars and ran into Lenny Dragon from Rios, and that one went really badly as well. It had Cyril Payne with Queensguard, I think, in play, and of course he can just stand in marshalling and kill every one of your charts that you have, and no way for Baratheon to really withstand that kind of pressure. So I think Stelios there was one trigger where he played Set Downer Deeds and traded 1 power for 2 cards. Maybe that was a slight misplay there. Could have just gone for 6 cards, tried to draw a milk, but then we know how these Banner Dragon decks go. They have the card for attachment removal and stuff like that, and it's Banner Dragon actually I found to be a really strong agenda in this tournament. Everyone kind of found a good deck with it, and a lot of the games were won with that agenda. And this one unfortunately also went downhill pretty quickly. And the game 4 was Ivailo played Bara Summer against Lenny Alliance. And
yes, it was a really, really frustrating game. Yeah, I should rather have played Battle of the Trident, with maybe pointy end for Cersei or something else, or some Sweet Sleep and so on, because I watched him training this aliens deck, but not realized what to change, and we were sometimes you stay in line even you should turn off, and then the first plot, my opener was what is this?
Summer Harvest.
Yeah, Summer Harvest, and I run into Peace and Prosperity, something like that, and it was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, so
let's go quickly do another game.
I played a lot of Bara Summer recently. It's been my main deck, and I was really tempted to put in Summer Harvest because there is all that late Summer Feast opening, and even if you hit the Maiden, it's still 8 gold, so it's a better deal for you potentially than just opening late Summer Feast, and there is no downside. But in the end I dropped it simply because you can't really afford to miss with so much expensive stuff. If you okay, Peace and Prosperity is a really tough one to run into, but even if it's just double Summer Harvest where both players suffer and you don't get the cards on the board, it can really hurt. But I can tell you that I played just a casual game online, I think around that time, against someone playing Lenny Alliance. It was the same deck, I think Banner, Stag and Kohor, and I lost really badly with Bara Summer that game as well, so it was a terrible matchup. And they have some new cards. I play a lot of Lenny Alliance myself with just with the Rush from the Disputed Claim and some Renown, and Warhammer for Intimidate, but this was a different attachments package, and played some weird stuff like Maester's Chain to get rid of your mix and stuff like that, and I found it super difficult, and had both cats, I think, the Serpounce and the Lady Whiskers on Maester Pylos and stuff like that I'd never seen before, and just a nightmare to play against. Yeah, and we went 3-1 down with this one, and so I needed to win to stay in the match, and I played Wars again. I modified it slightly to face Named the Shadows here, because I wanted to counter the jumpers, put barring the gates in some other minor stuff, and I ran into Many-Faced God that just played Clansman, and this was a tough game, a bit of a nightmare. I was able to push some power challenges through just to stay in the game, but he had so much pressure early on, and I checked the hand with Red Priest, I think, and there was something like 3 Tyrions in there and 2 copies of Sir Jacelyn by water, so any chance of getting those characters away from the board with Morghulis, for instance, immediately when I saw the hand I thought, okay, they're here to stay. And once Sir Jacelyn starts putting those Queen's Assassins into play in the challenger's phase and forces you to kill off your board, it's not going to go well for you. And I had Delena, who at least stops painted dogs, a bit of stand, but could never really protect her, never had enough claim soak or any dupes, and was just under pressure immediately. And then actually, miraculously, I think it ended on time, something like 11-11, and I lost on cards left in the deck. So it's frustrating to look back at the game and think what else could have been done. I think I left both Winter Festivals unplayed because I needed to play other plots just to get a bit of a board going. So if I revealed one of those, who knows, maybe I get the extra power, or maybe he gets more unopposed with that and I still lose. I wasn't really sure, but in the end, actually in the last round, he had I had Summer Hall, which stops Tyrion on the power challenge. He can't return the clansman to hand to raise claim, and he had Nightmares in hand and just didn't think to play it, so he had that misplay. Without it, he would have just won on power anyway, so I think definitely deserved to beat me with that one. And Many-Faced God takes the icons as well if he's struggling a bit for the power icon, which clansmen often do.
I really was wondering why you ended up 11-11, because the beginning was so tough. Yeah, the claim, two claim, it was really, really hard to defend with no dupes and so on. But yeah, only one card or two cards, or how many cards was the difference?
Not sure what the situation was. It was close, yes.
It was really, really tight. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now you want me to? Now you're giving me an idea to build a Many-Faced God smuggler deck once we get the ambushing smugglers.
I did actually think of that immediately. I think I considered it for the playtesting to just build one and try to. That's the only source of ambush basically that Baratheon would have. But
that's gonna be goofy. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, I think you need some reliable way to get it in place so that it's like the wolves would. You can play a Many-Faced God with the dire wolves, but if it's not in play, the agenda is not doing anything, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same situation because the Many-Faced God, of course, finds power icons, and smugglers. A lot of them are have military intrigue, I think. Yes, Peter. So I think you played next, and so we lost this one and could afford to play some of the weird ones again. And I think you played 3 companies against Lenny Kohor.
I can always afford to play weird decks. I did. So this is a deck this is one of the factions that I complained that we were talking about trading it for something or like swapping it, and I said, well, I'll do something with it, and I didn't really have a good idea at the time. But this turned out to be something really nice, and it's become one of my favorite new decks. The funniest thing is this is a similar concept, I think, to Mummers, where you're having a lot of keyword sharing with the Shagwell, and essentially, the main keywords we have here are Intimidate with the 3x Warhammer, and then Renown, because there's a lot of Renown characters. Because the main thing is I wanted the Fickle Bannerman to work, and the agenda essentially prevents the Fickle Bannerman from defecting, which is amazing. And when you have them with gold and Warhammer, they are like Intimidate, Renown, kind of like just beat sticks that can be shared with Shagwell or Vargo Hoat, and it went really well. So the funny thing that happened during this match, I was against Geddes, and he was playing Lady Cohor, so I had 2 Cohors in a row. I managed to win initiative almost every time. I led Maiden, and essentially by going first, I first put Robert Baratheon, which is the Long May He Reign version, the fast one, out with a Warhammer, and I was able to intimidate most of his board because the key trick in this deck is running Intimidate and then playing. So initially, basically starting a challenge without your Intimidate character, and then playing No Song So Sweet to add them in after they usually don't declare, like Defenders on something like a power challenge. And you can get 2 challenges out of Bob that way. You can get 2 Intimidates with the character, and I was able to kind of break the theme of his deck, which he wanted to go first and paid off into play, and that just didn't work because I was intimidating most of his characters for Cohor. But yeah, he got I think it was second round, he saw that Bob with the hammer was going to be really problematic, so he actually played Sweet Sleep on Robert Baratheon, which to me seemed like a a slight misplay, but it is what it is. So it went very well, actually.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, No Song So Sweet, one of the newer cards. Well, not so new now. It's a year old, I guess. But I think of all the teams, we kind of used a lot of these cards that you see sometimes, but not very often in various decks. So I'm really happy with that, actually. Would be interesting if you had all the decks to check how many cards actually weren't being used at all. I think it's should be a very small number for Baratheon.
I definitely agree. And a couple other, like, I think, now that I'm thinking about it, that I wanted to highlight were the efficiency of the Antlermen. Actually, I had Antlermen on the board, and between Sir Richard Horp and the Stormlands fiefdoms, I was often able to gain gold during taxation, which really helped the econ for this deck. So
I also like Antlermen.
I think they're a very underrated card, yes.
Yeah, I was worried that they wouldn't see play because of the traits. Basically, in a lot of decks, you're looking for either a lore or a bastard, maybe knight sometimes. And actually, there was a late edition of the intrigue icon. Used to be or the power icon used to have just the intrigue one.
The intrigue icon is very nice.
So as a bicon, works pretty nicely.
Yeah, he's being able to trigger him naturally from just power claim is nice. Granted, you can only really utilize that in with events and maybe somehow ambushing something or whatever. But,
totally. Like an earlier version of this deck, I was trying to get the recursion of No Song So Sweet to work with Cask of Ale, but I just found that it was more worthwhile to include something like Privileged Position instead of the Cask event. So it worked out well, especially when you run a deck where you play Supporting the Faith, because it now gives Baratheon the ability to actually gain gold during the challenge phase, which is something that was foreign to us previously.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm very pleased. I'm very proud of this one. So I'll probably publish it with a more detailed write-up later on, and I think I may take it to some of our local tournaments or something, just because you don't see free companies, and I think it's fun and surprising.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, and then game 7 in this one is Paweł's game. So he played Darkwing Dark Words against Lannister Darkwing Dark Words. And not sure, Paweł, are you back yet? I think he's gone for a break. So I think in this one, basically, we just have a much better deck. As we saw in the stats, Darkwing Dark Words with all the Neil events and some of the ones that are generally useful that don't have a really complicated triggering condition in Baratheon is actually a really strong deck, and we won both games, even the one where we played it competitively when the match was not decided yet. And I think Lannister just dumped theirs because theirs doesn't really work. So this one was pretty easy for us, I think. And so 4-3 after 4-1, nice result, and definitely limiting the damage made some difference in the end, because of course the tournament did come down to overall game wins. And the next one is against against Targaryen. And this one we needed to win. As you can see, Baratheon won all 3 of their first 3 matches, and if they beat us, we had 1 defeat already. Of course, they would be 2 ahead of us, and they would have the better head-to-head match. So pretty much, I think that meant the tournament would be over. So we really concentrated on this one and got some good decks together and tried to play really well. And started with Peter's game. And I think you played Black Cells, didn't you? The house with the red door. And
this is my HRD Cells deck, and this is a deck that before the redesigns, I actually played in Champions of Westeros, and I think I got Master of Whisperers out of that summer league. So it was good then, and I still think it's a pretty solid deck. It was just I got very unlucky, and it was very well played by my opponent. He was running Targaryen Free Folk, and he was able to turn 1, because like for this kind of deck, I don't really set up characters initially. I just I have my cells out, and then I have usually a card in shadows, maybe an econ location as well. And he was able to like lead with, you know, obviously claim 2 plot, and then what was really devastating was he basically used his agenda to raise a claim on intrigue round 1, and it discarded all of the shadows cards I had in hand, which was very sad. And I went 2 rounds without because I didn't have extra draw at the time. I didn't have the econ out because I had run Counting Coppers in the deck, so I couldn't afford just to play Copper's second round because he was just going to aggro my hand again. So I was trying to just get cards on the board in a position, and I was top decking, and I started getting Shadows cards towards the end, but it was too little too late. And one of the things that I regret about this deck in retrospect was I run Valar Morghulis in it, and I used to run Valar Dohaeris as well, but I switched to the Stranger, which I've had some success with, but in retrospect, I think Dohaeris is just a little more consistent, and it would have potentially stalled another round out for me in this matchup because I just couldn't keep characters on the board since I wasn't drawing Shadows characters and couldn't marshal them out and have them survive his multiple claims. So tough match, but well played, and obviously disappointing on my end when I felt like this was my strongest deck, but that's how these go sometimes.
Yeah, for all of that preparation against the Targaryen, then we got Free Folk immediately. A bit harsh. Okay, so Steven's game is next. So actually, Steven has to leave soon, so we'll talk about his game here, and then the other 2. I think was it 2 more? I think that he played next.
Yeah, I played 3 more, but there was only a few interesting parts in those ones. No, it's getting a bit late here. So I believe I did. I was actually excited for this one. I was doing Battle of the Trident out of Baratheon, which I hadn't really done before. A few people know that I've played Battle of the Trident quite a lot since its release, quite religiously, especially in Martell. So I was pretty excited to pick it up in Baratheon. I was versing Targaryen Whitebook, and he had a very good start. I'm pretty sure. I feel like I was playing off the back foot from the get-go. But I did luckily find I found a Storm's End near the start. I think it was like turn 1 maybe. 5-cost Storm's End, new Storm's End, and that was pretty much the primary reason why I could stay in the game. Because I could stop. He had Khal Drogo from turn 1. I was able to stop him from just completely destroying my board, which was going thinner and thinner by the turns. I made some last-minute adjustments to this deck that actually were the reason why I stayed in there. I know I chucked in big 7-cost Stannis and core Bob, who actually helped do quite a lot. Stannis actually got me to draw a few cards, which actually kept me in the game. And I probably had an interaction that I don't think I've ever had myself or seen, although I know others probably have. King's Hunting Party actually had an intrigue icon. I've rarely seen it happen. I had 1 copy in this deck. He had a Beggar King on his Khal Drogo, and it actually allowed me to do an intrigue challenge, which this deck was very, very weak with. But no, it was good. I wasn't able to trigger the agenda as much as I wanted. However, it did let me trigger I believe I triggered a siege preparation, which in a scenario where I wasn't really drawing as much as I'd want to, it, again, similar to Stannis, it's what helped me draw what I needed, like Robert Baratheon in the end, for example. This deck was very surprising for me. I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to keep playing it as well.
Yeah, hopefully we can get one of them published, because we did 2 games. So this one is slightly out of date. As you can see, there's no King's Hunting Party here, and Robert missing as well. So there were some modifications.
I believe I think I reposted it in our thing, but yeah, we can post it later. I'd love to show people.
Definitely look forward to any deck that is making use of Storm's End, because that was the big mystery, of course, before the tournament started, and it's fit really nicely in some of our decks, and, especially this one. We weren't really sure what the opponent would play here, so okay, White Book was a bit of a surprise. We were thinking, is it going to be Burn or maybe the Dothraki with the military pressure, but okay, still had the Drogo, so same thing in the end.
Yeah, and as you can see, the deck did have a bit of, as you mentioned earlier, it did have a bit of that the 7 synergy within it, especially with Bottom for the Good being a commander who can obviously trigger Battle of the Trident, as well as the Holy 100 being an army to trigger it. But in my game, I actually didn't really find any, unfortunately. I found, I think, like one Holy 100, one or two other cards here and there, but nothing major. It was mostly, surprisingly, my big characters that actually won me the game. Stannis for the Lightbringer on him.
Selisi looks pretty nice in this, struggling a bit with the intrigue icons, but giving armies intrigue and commanders, of course, to trigger the agenda. Seems like a good play, because the power really is the weak one. Siege trait is not that popular, but Edict is pretty good.
Well, it's like one thing that, and this is something I learned from playing it a lot with Martell. If you just build your Battle of the Trident deck, you know its strengths, and you know that Baratheon's not going to have a very strong intrigue presence, especially with armies and commanders. Build your plot deck around that. I've got Parley at Storm's End was actually a surprisingly useful tool as well, because it's a plot that you can open naturally, or you can flip into a Battle of the Trident and surprisingly just block out your opponent from doing any challenges. I'm pretty sure I used it actually to stop him from doing military in one phase, and then I battled the Trident into something else, which allowed me to play military. So it was there's some interesting combos in here.
Right, and then you also played the last 3 rounds. So you played Bara Prince, you played Kohor, and you played Banner Sun. So is there any particular
I would like
game?
to hear something. Yeah, about the last game against Hanno. I watched it and it was really amazing. Yeah, what are your thoughts about this game?
I'll go one by one quickly. The Prince that was promised deck, that one honestly, it was one of the games where like my hands were shaking a little bit afterwards because I don't know how I won it. It was I'm one that I hate Stark Crossing. I don't think it's like an unfair deck, but it's just I'm sick of versing it whenever I see a Stark player. And so when I saw versing Stark and then it matched up with Lord of the Crossing, I'm like, all right, I'm already upset. And then I also saw his hand with Red Priest, and it was potentially probably the best Stark Crossing hand I'd seen. You know, he had Septim Ordain, he had 2 I Am No Ones, he had Arya, he had Sansa, he had a bunch of other cards that he was easy for him to pull out. And yeah, I'm just like, look, I'll just play it as quickly as I can. I didn't even find Bob until like near the end. But there are a few very little key plays that I made. I remember one of the MVPs of that game was definitely the 1 copy of Cask of Ale. Surprisingly kept me in the game. That, along with, I believe I also found Storm's End as well, which seems to be an MVP for me in this tournament. Whenever I found it, it always helped me in the right way. And eventually I was just able to keep in the game by just pulling challenges into a power challenge where I had most of my strength, being Red Keep, having Courtney Penrose able to restand and all that. And then we mentioned it earlier, the one card that you have in every Baratheon deck, so Emery Florent, absolute MVP of the entire tournament, for me at least, where a very crucial round, I believe he actually played When You Die or something along those lines, and Emery Florent knelt. It was right after I actually played Mad King's Command, I believe. He was able to just kneel out his entire board, and I was able to, get to a point of winning. But yeah, that game I was very proud of because it was a very, very difficult matchup, and still I just pulled ahead in a deck that I'm not familiar with. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely a nice win because, of course, they used their strongest agenda, the crossing one, and I think there was one weird moment where after you've taken a Melisandre dupe for claim, he had a really shocking Valar Morghulis that surprised everyone and just killed. I think it killed your Robert with some power, but then he couldn't. That's where you had started to take control of the game, but so he reset, but he couldn't really retake control after that.
Yeah. The other two games I'll brush through because they're not really wasn't anything too notable. Cohort is just good. Cohort's always been good. It hasn't really changed. It was fast. It was a fun game. And that Banner Sun deck. Not gonna lie, I feel like I played that quite late, and I don't remember half the game, but I just remember I was very excited afterwards.
Me too.
I can't 100% remember exactly what happened in that game.
I can tell you a little bit. I was really nervous watching it. So you were playing against Crossing from Hano, and we were thinking, okay, is he going to play Knights or is he going to play Sand Snakes? And you built something.
That's right.
There was a kind of a counter to both of them, and then you were completely in control of most of the game. He couldn't really push the crossing challenges through or do much, and then he had that one crazy round where he was able to play Duran's game and Superior Claim and the crossing challenge in the same round and got to 14 power, I think, going into the final one, where I think he did win initiative, but you played the Mad King's Command, and I think Alistair Florent left play, and he didn't have much standing characters because he also needed to keep some power on his knelt ones, like I think he had Vargo Hout and something else, maybe Angui with some power.
Yeah, that's right. The only thing I do remember there was then Robert Baratheon, Fear of the Storm, Robert Baratheon. Definitely a good choice against the matchup for what we thought he was going to play. As he's able to either kneel all of the good low-cost Martell characters or kneel any of the big ones that he's going to play. But we'll keep them kneeling, sorry. And I found him on setup, which was quite literally the reason I could stay in the game and the reason I stayed ahead of that game. So yeah.
Yeah, watching this game, it was really like a thriller, and Hanno takes a lot of time thinking, and everybody was nervous. Oh, wow, what's his plan? But luckily not something special.
Yeah. I'm just glad that I got the win. Especially versing the faction that I was hoping to get into. I proved that maybe they'll miss me, you know. Miss not having me.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we are streaming this for I think 2 hours and 30 minutes, something like that now, and some of the players are running out of time. I think Dennis and Peter will be leaving us shortly, so I think we'll talk to them before they have to go. If there is any particular games that stick in the mind, otherwise I will just, when we get to them later, I will just narrate them, since I did record everything. Is there anything for you guys that you think we should cover? Any interesting decks or any interesting points that you had in your games?
I have one game you haven't covered, but I don't think it's a pretty interesting deck or game. It was the Targaryen one, when I played Baratheon Brotherhood without banners against Taxi of Blood, the Dothraki deck, and I think I was able to get a Sora high in the first round, or pretty early, and was able to intimidate most of his characters before he could actually do any military challenge or pressure. And so I wanted if I had to skip one round before the tournament, it would have been Targ for sure for me, because I hate to play against Byrne. I don't hate to play against Dothraki that much, but yeah, mostly I have to play against Byrne, and I really don't want to do that. So, but I had to play Targ, and it was Dothraki, and it worked out. And I think then, yeah, came my Stark game against Richard, the one I most regret. I think we tried to guess the matchup here, but it wasn't Stark Assault from the Shadows we expected.
Yeah,
but we
maybe
wasn't sure.
Aloof in a part, or maybe Kings of Winter. Something
Yeah,
like
I think Aloof and Apart was one of the agendas we thought he could play. So I decided to go with Baratheon Brother Without Banners again, and I think I also had stuff like, I think I had Valar Harris and Duel both in my blood deck, and it wasn't that impactful against Dark Assault from the Shadows. It was a winter deck. He had Mira from round 1 and the Tower of Shadows. I think those were the key cards from the beginning, and then he had Reek. And I think I played my Kingdom of Westeros game yesterday against Pauli, the one where I played for Targ against me in this tournament, and he also beated me with Stark, Reigns of Castamere with Reek, and I think Reek is a pretty good card, or maybe my decks just are running less intrigue icons, or I do too many challenges so my opponent can do unopposed against me in return, because I lost that game and it was again because of Reek, because he stole a very good character of me and I never could recover from that. And I think I did a big misplay against Richard. I don't know if I would have won the game if I didn't, but I had Celise in play to reduce my roller attachments, and I had a what's the name of the attachment? Red God's Blessing in hand, and I didn't marshal it because I thought I couldn't afford it, which I could because I didn't have to pay for it. And I think that maybe would have changed the game, because if I had attached it and had a strength boost, I didn't have to kneel too many characters and there wouldn't be a unopposed challenge for Reek. But yeah, maybe I would have lost even without this error. I don't know, but it haunted me for some time
yeah,
in the tournament.
We did discuss it
Still
at
haunts
length.
me.
Because of the
Yeah,
most
after this game, Dennis announced that he's retiring for the next round. You know.
Yeah, but I guess in the end it all had to be that way. We had the pairings we had after this, and we won. So
yeah, and you played two
it was
really
all good.
key games at the end and won both of them.
Yeah, I think the one against Greyjoy with Aliens, as I said before, I think it is the best deck. I had Randall Tarley in round 1 with a Warhammer and Margery, and they did some intimidating, because otherwise I think Rachel of the Crossing would have been way too fast. And I had the Honey Wine, which was also, I don't know if it was 3 or 4 power at the end on the Honey Wine from the game. I think those were decided those games. And the milk, I still think Cohort is so good because, or especially this Cohort deck, but maybe all the others, because you can rush so much, but you also have the control elements of getting a milk when you need it, getting a traitor when you need it. I think because
Seized
of
by
this
the guard.
element, or Cohort in general is seized by the guard. Core is such a strong agenda, and for me one of the most fun also. If you
I think you survived
trade
it.
attachments around.
Most of the
Yeah.
game
And
was
you have-
just with one attachment in play, and you kept trading it to stand Randall Tarley. So really great play.
I think it would have been easier if I would have drawn at least 2 or 3 attachments. Yeah, there wasn't that much, and one was discarded by we do not saw. And then the last game against Marcel, he had a perfect streak before our match, so I snapped that, and I'm sorry for that, but I had to do it. Baratheon Knights of the Hollow, it wasn't the deck or the style of deck I usually play. It was a heavy kneel deck, but it was fun actually. I kind of liked that playstyle also, so maybe in the future I will play some more control decks and not always the rush ones.
Yeah, that seemed like probably your easiest game of the entire tournament. He never got, I think he had maybe 4 power at the most all game. You won pretty easily. In the end, everything was nailed. And also I think you had the Mad King's command when he was threatening to maybe get a bigger board.
Yeah, I think Mad King's command, if we want to talk about specific cards, was in general a very good card for us over most of the games.
Hands down.
It's another instances when you're talking about the game and the crucial moment, and all of a sudden, the playing Mad King's command is one of the crucial moments of the deciding moments of the game. It's very strong in Baratheon.
Yeah, I
it's
think
fantastic. It's fantastic.
With Baranil, if you can kneel a character afterwards with Melisandre and Seen in Flames, or if you have Alistair and he leaves play, and you get
Imri,
an extra kneel, or Imri after that, I think especially with Baranil, it's a very... It hurts because of the locations you normally need, but yeah, if you have some kneel...
Yeah, but not in Knights of the Hollow Hill, because you only play like 4 or 5 maybe, and the Iron Bank was in play from the start there.
Yeah, it is even better. Yeah, it was one of the... I don't know, I think maybe I never played Iron Bank before, or 2 or 3 times, and I realized in this game when you have Iron Bank in the first round, it is pretty good, and you get so much money out of it. And just after round 2 or 3 already, when it's stacked with like 8 or 10 golds.
It's even better with free companies when you can set it up.
Yeah,
exactly.
Then just give it gold during the draw phase.
And boost it in the first round, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing.
If you have it early, it's insane.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that all of my games, not that spectacular decks, or pretty new decks, because as I mentioned in the beginning, I thought I wouldn't have even time to play that much, so there wasn't that much time to deck build or test. So I played the decks I already have with small adjustments, or took decks you guys built. So yeah, not that much talking about
you ended
the
up
decks.
playing. You ended up playing every round, and you played well. So
yeah.
Okay, so Peter, you played 2 as well after that. So you had what did you have? So Assault from the Shadows against the Greyjoy Crossing was the 6th one, and then Banner Kraken against Martell Stag. Anything interesting from those games?
And I was able to take off against Stark. That was my win, right? Yeah. So actually, in both of these games, they were different from my other loss, where I was in control in the beginning. The Greyjoy game, that was just tough. Like he had I think Miha, I think he was able to save 3 or even like maybe 4 people with a Valar Morghulis, and like I was having to spend, I forgot what the card was. But I was having to like use my Stormlands fiefdoms instead of preserving my own power. I had to move power off of Victarion to prevent like a save, because he was using the save Victarion, not the boat one. And I was up early. He got Victarion out, he got Asha out, and he was able to save his whole board. I had to rebuild, and it was just little I could do. He was able to keep using Asha to grab like Drowned God Fanatics. I think he used all 3 of them in that match. It was pretty tough to see. On the next match against Martell, it wasn't, it was very well played by my opponent. He was running Banner Stag, which is a good agenda, for Martell. And the deck I had, which is a Banner Kraken deck, Miha, I don't know if you have that in the bookmarked.
Yes.
I am quite fond of it. I do like it a lot, actually. It's a vision deck. It uses a very competitive mill, and it uses cards like Triss Botley and Baelor Blacktide, which is it's very fun. So the premise of this deck was to use things like Baelor and Triss and the Botley crew to choke the opponent's hand, and then if you have Melisandre in play, you can kill characters, which is also another form of choke, because they can't play them, they're in the dead pile. And I actually started off really well. I had my my chair out, but unfortunately he was also a dominance deck, so that made this a lot more difficult to go at winning. And then round 2, I played Air to find Melisandre, and he pulled Valar Morghulis round 2, which was a surprise to me. So I had Melisandre found with Air, but I did not want to put her into play for obvious reasons. And that's where I was still winning a couple rounds after, but I just ran out of steam, and I eventually hit my own Valar Morghulis, which I was actually considering swapping for a Mad King's Command before this match, but I decided not to because I hadn't run it with it, and that would have been that probably would have kept me in it, and I might have won. But it is what it is. So no, overall, I still like this deck. I think it's very fun. It just that was a very tough matchup.
Yeah, and there was one play I remember where you played Set Downer Deeds. I think you traded 2 for 4 and you drew nothing just in column.
I drew 4 limited locations. It was bad. That's just
bit ridiculous.
That's one of the worst whiffs I've ever seen.
So unlucky.
Yeah, well, it happens. I was like, well, I can play one of these cards this round. Amazing. But those things happen. Overall, I was very pleased with this deck, and I will probably just still play it casually going forward. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I think you guys said you needed to leave, so we'll say goodbye, I guess, here to Dennis, Steven, and Peter. Thanks a lot for joining us for this little reminiscing exercise and basically a celebration party. It was an honor and a privilege to have you in the team.
Yeah, thank you. Like you're I would say you're like the biggest reason why we won with all your work put into this as well.
Fifth biggest, maybe, according to.
For sure.
I agreed with Stephen. Like Miha, all the organization and just the streaming, it just gives us the opportunity to learn from the matches that we win and the ones that we lose. So, and I just can't underestimate how much time and effort that took. So it's a lot of editing and it's a lot of commitment. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
my
a
pleasure.
lot of work.
Definitely fun.
Well, I'll see you guys. I'm gonna have to log off.
Yep.
See you,
Time for me
Peter.
to sleep.
See you.
All right, guys.
See you later, guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Y'all.
See you.
All right, and those of us that remain will just have a look at what we skipped. So we're just have a couple of matchups to cover. I will.
Dennis said something that he's also has to leave soon, I think.
Yeah, actually, Dennis is staying for a bit longer. He says, "Happy to have you." And
Maybe he.
Don't make your parents angry.
So where did we?
I think Targaryen matchup.
Exactly. So Targaryen game 3 was Marek's game, White Book against Targaryens. I think Marek, we got that matchup pretty nicely. I think you had White Sword Tower in play to counter Burn, and then it was something completely different. But I think you still won pretty easily, didn't you?
I don't remember the game well.
Yeah, okay, so I don't remember it that well either, so it must not have been very dramatic. I think there was, I think he had Jaime Lannister, the one that Steven mentioned in his round 1 game, the one that discards characters if they enter play.
And Jaime.
Yeah, and then he played mercenaries to put stuff into play in challenges, and he had his own Jaime that was kind of blocking that. I think he was trying to stand him, but it didn't really work. There was a lot of anti-synergy there.
I had Sir Meryn Trant, so that was really helpful against Tyrion mercenary.
Yeah, exactly. That's another counter that you can do to just anything that is discarded as cost, just remove from the game.
Oh, yeah. The discard pile wasn't impressive because of Sir Meryn.
Yeah, and then I think he got stuck with Jaime, who actually had some renown on him, if I remember correctly, and then he couldn't really get rid of him with the Harris and stuff like that. So yeah, it didn't really work for him in that game. Okay, and then so that was a 2-1 lead, and the game 4 was Paweł's game, Conclave against Targaryens, and I seem to remember, Paweł, that you were under a lot of pressure there with he had Miri Mazdur and Drogon and stuff like that, and throwing everything at you, but you still won pretty easily, didn't you?
Yeah. It just goes to show you the power of Conclave. It's a very resilient deck with very big potential for a card draw. You really draw your answers to whatever threats you're facing at the right exact moment. I think it's playing Baratheon against Stark is might be a little bit easy if you can open up your deck. Basically, whatever Targ archetype you're facing, you just know that you can't go wrong with barring the gates. You can't go wrong with supporting the faith. You can't go wrong with parley at the Storm's End, and you can't go wrong with the Palace of Sorrows. So all three plots I have included in my deck. They are universally applicable against Stark. So actually, we played 5 rounds, and every 4 of them was like a direct counter to whatever the Tark is doing. I had some very crucial in the name of your king event when the dragon dropped. I had the parley at the Storm's End to keep the Murimasdur at bay. I had he had a lot of burn events, so I had supporting the faith for that, and then ultimately the Chef Bob entered the board, kneeled all of his high costers, and it was a pretty straightforward win, I would say.
Yeah, and I think Meister Malin as well to stop some characters participating.
Of course. One copy of Meister Malin with Conclave, you see it. The one I had, I think it was the round 1. I had a really awkward hand when you have to decide whether you drop your Iron Throne and stay with 2 gold. That you cannot spend of anything, or you drop Delena, but your Northman encampment is nailed, and you know that you're not winning the dominance. So basically, you're stuck with 4th gold for another plot. So it was a troublesome moment, but then, of course, during my redraw, I drew what's the name of the card? The neutral one that gives you gold for every non-faction character.
Bravos.
Yes, Bravos. So I decided to put Delena in play near my northern encampment and just say, okay, I'm fine with the 5 gold economy for the next round. Then the Bravos hits the table. I think I managed to draw to gain 5 gold from this Bravos trigger, and I was fine.
Yeah, it was really impressive. I was impressed. I think maybe
that was my record. My record is the best Bravos trigger ever. I think I had Citadel as well, so it it enabled me to draw the out of faction meisters.
I think of all the agendas that we played, maybe Alliance and Conclave look the most solid. So I'm surprised that we don't see Bara Conclave more in competitive play, because even in a game like this, if you can imagine that Targaryen is trying to kill you in every round and has Drogon in play, and then they have Reigns as well, so you need to kind of not let them trigger that if you can help it, and you defend against 2 challenges and you still win pretty easily in the end. That's really impressive.
But Nietzsche, I think that sorry?
I have always thought that Conclave is underplayed.
Yes, and it works in all the factions basically.
With Targaryen successfully.
Mm-hmm.
In Baratheon, it's of course you're the Targ Conclave. I think you were 3rd in the Polish nationals. In Baratheon is especially strong because I think that they have a very stable win condition in Throne and Chamber and the dominance package. So what Conclave gives to this kind of deck is basically the card draw and flexibility with this, tiny Meister characters that serves a particular function. And if you have a very straightforward win condition and you have a means to neutralize whatever threats you're facing, it's a very solid agenda. And I think that the Conclave
The Hanos deck was published in the very strong Tark Sea of Blood meta. So initially it was an answer to Targaryen, and of course we employed this against Targaryen very successfully this time.
Yeah, and Dennis, I'm not sure if you're still with us. You played this in the Nordic League as well, with all the factions, and went undefeated. So works with
Yeah,
everything.
I think it's a very versatile agenda. I mean, you always have the masters from all the different factions, and then you can add some cards from the faction, from your main faction. The cards that stood out to me in this tournament, I think, was Master Mullin. I think he saw also in the Nordic League agenda tournament, Master Mullin. Was amazing, and then healing expertise, the Citadel to get Bravos. I think it's Bravos to get a lot of money. I think those were, and of course,
Yeah, I was always
Archmaester Marvin. I think Conclave is a good agenda, but if you have Archmaster Marvin, it's a very, very, very good agenda, because you have a hand of basically 9 more cards that your opponent can't discard or can't do anything. So yeah.
Yeah, with this amount of saves, I'm still considering if playing Valar Morghulis is a viable option as an offensive Valar, you know. I don't think it hasn't been played already, but as a thing to consider, maybe running two resets even.
I think it could be a.
Yeah, maybe
sure.
in a deck like this, if you play Throne and Chamber, of course, it works nicely on smaller boards where not much is happening. Okay.
Yeah, maybe I'm bringing it to Dalek. I don't know. We'll see about the restricted list, I guess.
So let's move along. So this was the win against Targaryen. We led 4-1 at this point. Actually, Denis's game was the win, but we covered that already. That's the one where I stupidly overslept, missed the start, and unfortunately that's one of the few that we don't have on record. And then after that, Stelios and I decided to just use whatever bad agendas were left. Stelios played Kingdom of Shadows, and Targaryen had the same plan. They played the Banner Dragon for that game, and unfortunately they had Drogo with all the military pressure, and even though Stelios had Throne and Chamber, it was never strong enough to stall the game. It was a very quick loss, unfortunately. None of his tricks quite worked, and this was statistically possibly even the worst agenda we had in Baratheon. I can show you. It had 5 wins and 11 losses before the tournament started. So, and I contributed a lot of those losses. Actually, I played it in some events and never really could get it to work. So, happy to get rid of that. And then I played green side. Against what was it? Targaryen Banner of the Stag, and this this deck actually looks like a joke, but it's not really. I played it competitively in the Hands Tourney, the French event, and had some close losses there. I think I won 2 games out of 5, but could have done more with a bit more luck. And it uses the agenda in combination with the Iron Throne and some resets to just basically make sure the opponent can't marshal much from their hand. You take some with Red Priest, something with Queen's Man, you block events with Dragonstone Convert, and you call something with the Iron Throne. That's the general plan, and it did work for a while. I think the game went to time, and I got him to basically 0 cards in play, just with the Iron Throne, and then it fell apart when he got some cards that I could do nothing against. I think there was Fire and Blood, which is an any phase action, so you can't really block it with the Iron Throne, and he was going to get a character into play that way. And I think Drogon also with his Ambush, and Aegon in Shadows, which you cannot block because he just triggers in another phase to come into play himself, if nothing else. And my plan fell apart, because I think that's if you play this Iron Throne, of course you can't play Throne and Chamber, and that's the one thing that's really missing, because it works so well with the resets. So unfortunately, I really wanted to win with this one, but wasn't to be, unfortunately. So we only ended up winning 4-3.
3 copies on a Misty Morn. Never seen it before.
Yeah, to replay Vanguard Lancers after Morghulis to stall some more. It's mostly non-unique here, so you can get some stuff back. Red Priests back after a reset, and Queen's Man potentially. Okay, and so we caught up with Targaryen this way, and match 5 was against House Stark. This was another one that I was not looking forward to, because this is of course the house that stands the most with their annoying tricks.
Isn't it Greyjoy?
Northern Armory. Greyjoy, I was not that worried about. We played.
But this game was against Stark. I'm sorry, Misha.
No, we played round 5 against Stark and round 6 against Greyjoy.
Okay, fair enough.
And we started with Marek's game, and that was a bit of a horror show, unfortunately, because we prepared Mummers, and they countered with Knights of the Hollow Hill, and Marek, I'm sure you remember, Bolton Flare in round 1, and then First Snow as well in the deck, so absolutely horrible matchup.
I have faced that deck. It was unwinnable matchup, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And Chrissy had the same Bolton Flare against Greyjoy's Mummers. I saw that deck published, and it was comment there about it.
Yeah, and we were. I was still hoping when I commentated on it for a while that maybe we could have a bit of a game, because it took him a while to start killing stuff off. But then he had First Snow as well, which he delayed. I think, I'm not sure, did he even reveal it, or was the game over before that? But he did have it in the deck. So even if you managed to somehow keep a board, then First Snow was a real killer in that deck, unfortunately. And
not much to talk about.
Yeah, Steven played then against Star Crossing. We covered that. So we needed to win that one. Went 11-0 basically to the opponent, but then he ran out of board, and Steven managed to turn it around. And then round 3 was against Stelios, and this was a big win for us. It kept us in the game, basically in the match. He played against Lucas, and he played Darkwing Dark Quartz against Stark Valyrian Steel. I remember Lucas had some annoying stuff in play. I think he had, was it the Eddard that can kill characters in dominance, and maybe there was ice as well. But somehow Stelios was able to block everything with some Kneel, and I think he had a Nightmares in the dominance phase on one occasion, and actually ended up winning pretty easily on that occasion. So we took a lead, and then I had a chance to get us 3-1 and get us the match point, and had unfortunately pretty infamous game against Connor that did not go well. So I finally played my Bara Summer similar to the version. I took 2 Worlds with 2 copies of Grand Melee and Storm's End to try to force challenges to become power and dominate in that way, with Throne and Chamber as well. And ran into Stark Banner of the Dragon that just pretty much crushed me. And there was that infamous Nightmares play. So in the round that ended up being the final round, he had Fast AD in play, Alysanne that was not kneeling, and some other characters, and I really wanted to prolong it into another round so that I could play Dohaeris, and maybe some power would leave play and boards would become smaller. And I had Delena to stop the stand, because Eddard also had Malleon's Tome to stand, and there was some other stand as well. Plaza of Pride I think was in play, and Then he used his old gate to draw 2 cards. He didn't have a hand. I think there was just 1 card in hand that I knew what it was because I'd seen it. It was, I think, the AC. And then he drew his 1 copy of Nightmares and played that on Delena, and then Fast Eddie just completely destroyed me and got to 15. I think he could have got to 17 as well. But in the end, actually, I think I was losing anyway, but it just was frustrating not to at least prolong it into another round. But he had Karth for my negative attachments, and I think he also had maybe just 1 copy of Mira that he also found to blank Delena in some rounds, and was really tough to play. And one of the cards that I've grown to hate the most in Stark is the Grey Wind attachment that just cancels anything you want to do, and it potentially, if used correctly, can work in multiple phases. So stops Melisandre, stops Robert, stops Khaleesi. So anything you try to do to control, if it's a character ability, unfortunately gets stopped. Yeah, tough game. I play King's Landing in this, which I played in the World Championship as well, and it was really strong on that occasion. I decided to keep it, but sometimes it does let you down, and on this occasion, of course, the economy, City Gates, Kingsgate, not that efficient compared to, for instance, Dragonstone Port or the Rose Road, which is better tempo. And if you don't draw King's Landing, you suffer with those slightly worse economy locations. And on this occasion, I drew it pretty late, and then it was the round where he had the Smith to just kneel my locations anyway, and couldn't really get it on the board. So one of my more frustrating games, unfortunately, and that meant it was 2-2 after 4 games in this round. Yeah. And then who played after me? Let's see. Game 5 was Dennis. That's the one we've covered, where he played against Richard with his Brotherhood, and had that Khaleesi misplay that might have cost him, but we'll never know. It was a tough game. And then
I think Victor played then.
Yeah, Victor played his what did he play? Also played Brotherhood. And, yeah, he played against I think was it Kings of Winter. Yeah. And actually that was a really bad loss for us, because he had such a good board. He had Angui with Red God's Blessing and a bunch of Relore, so he had a huge strength against the board that had Ice in play, and was trying to kill some stuff. And there was a 2-claim plot as well, I think, or something, or maybe something that increased the claim anyway. And he was really in a comfortable position to defend that military challenge, and he was going first with Intimidate from the agenda on Angui, and I guess again the lack of experience showed a little bit there, because we discussed it before and said, okay, go for, if you're going first, go for the icons, and they were weak on the intrigue, of course, so you get some unopposed, they can't strike back, and if you don't know the card pool, of course, you're not going to realize all the threats, and he just didn't play around the ice at all, which he could have done, and unfortunately cost us on that occasion, because he did get the targeted kill and the 2-claim military against him. And then it was still close after that. That's how much of an advantage he had before that point, and I think it finished on time. Okay, wasn't that close, a few power anyway, but could have gone either way that game, and it was a really tough one.
You will need some experiences, and I think he didn't train so much, and it's not an auto-playing game, and that were the reasons.
Yeah, you can't play optimally if you're not really match sharp. I think I played one game just before his tournament game with him, and I think that's possibly the only practice game he had, and we went over some of the challenges phase decisions, and I think he understood pretty well what the deck was supposed to do, and with a bit more experience, I'm sure he would have got the win with that one. But yeah, you need to play a bit just to so that it becomes automatic. And the last one, so this was also now a dead game. Paweł played against his Valyrian Steel against Stark White Book.
To boost my stats. Yeah, I think I really might have chosen another agenda, but I was at the point that I didn't have much time to practice. I didn't think that I can play. I mean, I knew the Valyrian Steel deck. I thought that the win is like valuable anyway. So I took my Valyrian Steel. I was facing, I think, Gerald Stark, Night's Watch, King's Agenda.
Yes, the white
which
book.
was very heavy. White Book agenda, yeah, which was very heavy. It played the King Rogue, of course. It was very heavy on put to the swords and ices. But as soon as you can kneel your iced characters, you prevail eventually with Baratheon. I think he didn't. The Stark White Book doesn't have much draw potential. So we reached to the point when Gerald has 2 cards in hand. I have 12. So with this discrepancy, you will prevail in the end. So I think it was pretty uneventful game.
Yeah, but 2 big wins. I think you played twice when we were 4-2 down, and we finished 4-3, and those were exactly the wins.
Yeah, it's important.
We needed at the end, yeah.
Don't take it away from me.
And
Really.
yeah, so we were hoping for Tark to lose as well after we lost this one to Stark, because they would have gone ahead of us, and they did lose to Martell. I think that they had that famous game where Mad played and decked himself from a winning position, but they still managed to win the last one, to win the game and help us a little bit. And then after that we were hoping for Stark to lose another one, because it was in their hands. They were ahead of us, and if they won the last 2, they would have won the tournament. Okay.
And they faced Martell.
Yeah, they faced Martell, and I thought that Martell was still in a pretty good position in terms of their agendas that they have left, and they had a good chance.
Yeah, Martell were very. They were very. They made good use of their agenda, because I think this is the only faction that we faced them. We faced them the last, and we realized that a lot of the biggest player that already that they can play them. So they managed their agenda really well, Martell, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And they still had Knights of the Hollow Hill left against us. So if
2 times, yeah, 2 times.
If the restricted list wasn't so harsh, I think we would have been in trouble against them. Yeah, but first we needed to beat Greyjoy, and here is where we found ourselves in trouble again. So this was round 6, and it was very close. We were almost out of the tournament, and the first game...
1-3?
Yeah, the first game was Peter's game that we covered, so he ran into a crossing with Victorian that intimidated a bunch of stuff, and really lost black cells as well, I think, with We Do Not Sow, and it was a tough one. And then Ivailo, you played Trident against Greyjoy Alliance in the second game that we really needed to win.
Yes, I was looking at the juicing pavilion. There's Greyjoy Free Fork. Was it Free Fork? No, it was Alliance. Yeah, not really sure about it. Yes, I was really lucky in this game, because I think my first heads-on spike was what is the smuggler, the most important smuggler in his deck? Salador San, I think, was it?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, and then he wasn't able to trigger all the smugglers, and he played really defensively, and was able to trigger my agenda very often, and he gave up, I think, in plot 4.
Yeah, I think this this has a mistake. They actually played the agenda that they didn't have available here. So they've used their alliances. There was a mistake on the jousting pavilion. So I think this was supposed to be 3 companies. I think there is a mistake here. It's supposed to be Greyjoy 3 companies, but in the game he did actually use alliance stag and 3 companies. Yeah, second win for Trident, which was a really good pick for us, as it turned out.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and then we had a tough job. Obviously, Paweł, you were facing the world champion, Alex, who played Greyjoy Winter against your Valyrian Steel, and that's just about as tough as it gets.
Very nasty deck, very nasty deck. And of course it started with, I think, marshalling, very bad hand at the first draw. I put the mulligan and I marshaled Rose Road, King Stannis, and the Sweet Sleep on him, just to have a nice redraw, and he marched my single Stannis. So the first round was, you know, from the very start, I was on the back foot. Actually, I managed to I think have a 9-0 lead at the end. But ultimately he prevailed with killing my economy, putting the first snow of winter. I whiffed with my Heir to the Iron Throne, and it's pretty much game.
Yeah, and I think I also remember that pillage version of Balon that just put stuff into play from your discard pile, which in the late game was really. I think you could just have taken Stannis and stuff like that from the discard pile.
Yeah, that was helpful. My only last hope was the Valar at last end. I mean the last turn. It was very telegraphed Valar. Obviously he played it round 7. I remember I had Melisandre. I had 6 cards in hand. One of them was lay waste. So I thinking, okay, I know he's playing Valar. I will just lay waste some of my 2 cost location. Fetch bodyguard for Melisandre, and after the reset I can control his board a little bit, but of course as it very often happens, the slay waste, one of the 6 cards, fell to the intrigue claim.
Yeah.
So no save for Melisandre, and
Alright, so
it just happens.
Saying goodbye to Dennis, who has to go now for real. Bye bye, Dennis. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Oh,
Thanks for making this. And see you.
Bye bye.
See you.
And Ivailo, how much time do you have left?
Yeah, something about 5-10 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah,
my family is knocking on the door.
I was hoping to keep it under 3 hours, but you know how it goes with these videos. So, but we are nearing the end now. So let's conclude. So I think just a few games that we still need to discuss. Some of them we've already done, of course, with the players who have had to go early. And so next one was Marek with Kohor against the Greyjoy Sea of Blood. Sounds like something that could have been played 3 years ago, Kohor versus Greyjoy Sea of Blood.
Another terrible matchup.
Yeah.
So it's like Kohor against Sea of Blood of the Traki, and I didn't have proper counters.
Yeah, it still kind of works in that Greyjoy faction, I think, with some of their events. I think he had the Bloody Cup, which was really annoying, and the goal to play it. Yeah. If you don't oppose, he plays the Bloody Cup, and if you do oppose, I think he had Throwing Axe in play on his military characters.
He had that, and something more. Well,
yeah, so
not much to tell.
Bad one for us again, and went 3-1 down with this. So this is where we were almost out of the tournament.
Yeah.
We needed to win the last three games to stay in the tournament and beat Martell, and we managed it. So this, I guess, is our finest hour here. So I played next. I think I had the easiest job. I played against Nevia, where I could have at least some kind of idea what she was going to play, because I played against her Greyjoy Prince deck before, Prince Balon, Core Balon, which of course has an easy way of winning by 5 just with his own ability. And I chose a nil deck, Blackwater Bay, to counter that, and I had a fairly easy game. I think I counted after the game, there were in all the rounds that were played, there were 25 characters on her side, if you count them each time when they went into the challenges phase, of course, in each round, and 21 of those were knelt, so basically almost nothing was... I think I had 4 challenges initiated against me in 6 rounds, and was pretty easy. Opened with the Maiden and had Consolidation of Power, and then in round 2 I played Annals and I had Consolidation of Power and even had the Justice in the discard pile, so just replay that for additional nil. Then it was Withering Cold with Selisi, then Heir to the Throne, tried to trade Selisi for something else, then I had Melisandre in play, and then Filthy Accusations, and then the Harris, or the Harris first and Filthy Accusations next, and just nailed everything. And I think the Victarion that stands, the 7-coster, was in play at some point, and even then I found a hunting accident immediately for him. So and Blackwater Bay is just amazing in that kind of deck, of course. I think I ended the game with something like 19 cards in the draw deck, so I drew like crazy. I think I had 7 cards drawn in one round just with the Blackwater Bay. So that was
nice one.
That was pretty favorable. And then Steven played that game with Bara Kohor against Greyjoy, Banner of the Sun. This one we did predict correctly that he would play, that Harrison would play Drowned God. And Steven actually had some bad luck, as I remember. He didn't really get a big high-cost character into play that would be good for those attachments, and he was kind of limited with the attachments too, and so Harrison had a bit of time for his it's basically a combo deck if you play Drowned God to get a lot of power very quickly once you get the pieces into play, and he did have that time, and he also used cards like Condemned and Beguiled to get rid of the power icons, and Secret Pact to stop one of the big guys from attacking, so stalled it really nicely. And I think it went something like 12-0, the scoreline to 12-12, something like that. And actually we came incredibly close to losing the tournament here, because in round 6, when Harrison used his Drowned God Fanatic from the dead pile, he came into play in the draw phase, and he had 1 Drowned Disciple in play. And then in marshalling, he marshaled another Drowned Disciple. So if he used Drowned God Fanatic when he had both of them in play, that would have been 1 extra power. And then he had a Secret Pact that he could have even used on his own character to gain renown. That's what you can do. It's rarely done, but it can be done. He could have put it on Aaron Damher, and it would have got him to 15 in hindsight, but he did draw some cards with Iron Gate and the Insight on Aaron, so I guess he wasn't playing with that information. I think he might have drawn those later. So, but it came really close, and it looked like Harrison would win anyway in the following round, just passively in marshalling before Steven could do anything. But Steven had King in the North, which was a really nice ending plot. Stopped any kind of power gain, and he just won in challenges, because now even the Beguiled, he had 2 Beguiled on his characters. They wouldn't work, of course, because they're triggered abilities. So he was able to close that. And then Dennis had the deciding game with Bara Alliance against Greyjoy Crossing. We talked about that already. It's one of the most interesting we had, I think. So if you want to watch that video, I encourage you to do so. It was a really impressive performance, even though he had a few attachments to work with, but he played it flawlessly with that cohort triggers. And so we turned it around 4-3, and Stark in the meantime did lose to Martell. Some close games, it ended 4-3, but I think it was 4-1 after 5 games, so Martell won pretty early. And then the calculation, of course, before the last round was that we first of all needed to beat Martell, but also Stark couldn't win one game more than we did, because then they would have tied for overall game wins, and we wouldn't win. And they made a pretty good effort of getting to that 6-1. In the end, it was 4-3, but they had 4-1 against Tyrell. So we needed to stay sharp as well and win all of our games. And yeah, I think we were left with some pretty good tools for that final round as well. We were left with some decent agendas. Although Marek, you played the first one, I was a little bit worried about your deck, the Banner Dragon, which is something I didn't think was a strong agenda, but I think you made a really good deck with that, didn't you?
I was really worried about this banner. I asked to play this banner because I thought I'm the weak player in our team, so I didn't want you to have to play the weakest agenda left. And I also thought that Banner of Dragon can be a proactive deck with big characters, attachments, like something like Cohort. In the end, I decided to play something really different, which is a kneel deck. I called it Kneel Them All because it was about kneeling the expected knights of the realm, but it were knights of the Hollow Hill instead.
Yeah.
By the way, yeah, against Martell, we made such big miscalculations on when it comes to what we expect our opponents to play. I mean, I think all our calls were off.
Yeah, you can see in this deck, so he has Robert to keep stuff knelt and Stannis in the same deck. They kind of have some anti-synergy, but we thought, okay, if it's a Knights deck, just put both of them in and surely most of them will stay knelt, and then it was a completely different opponent. But yeah, still a good win because he didn't... he had to use Varys, and he couldn't keep a big hand against the Mad King's command. Never really got that much draw. And in the end, he had that one big secret schemes that kept him in the game, but still won very dramatically on time by 1 power, I think. So that's definitely a game worth watching if you haven't seen it yet.
Absolutely crucial game. I was even thinking that it will go to cards in hands. And I think they were even on power and even on cards in hands. So the last challenge phase lasted for what, 40 minutes?
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm exaggerating.
We didn't have to rush then. I didn't count.
Yeah.
So I was thinking long, and Francesco didn't rush as well.
Yeah,
And
I edited some of that out in the final video to shorten it.
I just had my deck on the Trons DB. It's published, so everyone can read about my 2 mistakes, which Rivergate mistake was a big one, as it allowed secret schemes.
Yeah, and that was just before he revealed his last blood, so he had 5 cards from that, and then if he drew it later, he would go back to 0. So I think the game would be much easier.
So this was surely the most the game I was having most emotions.
Yeah, fantastic start for us in the final round, definitely. And we continued strongly. We talked about Steven's game already with against Hano. That's definitely worth watching as well if you haven't already. Just for that one round that Hano had the crazy power gain and scared us a little bit. And then third game was Peter's game that also we've already talked about. That was the game where he had that bad set downer deeds that drew nothing and just lost against Throne and Chamber, and also there was Boneway on the other side, so it was really classic Martell stag deck that he could do nothing about. And then game 4 was my game, so I played Bara Assault against House with the Red Door. We looked at what they had left and we tried to guess who was going to play what, and we had a kind of a feeling that maybe Todd would play House with the Red Door, but we were thinking that surely has to be either Starfall or the Shadows City, and in the end he played the Grimblood, probably because he knew that we still had Kings of Summer, and with 2 Summer plots revealed he would have humongous strength increases, and he played all the big lords and ladies and was really... Actually, I can show you the published version instead, but it should be the same. That was a really tough game that went to time as well, and he had 1 copy of the Iron Throne in his deck, and he had it on setup, so any chance I had for Throne and Chamber to work was gone immediately. But my keycard here was again Storm's End, so that's... I never used to have good results with this agenda, but the moment Storm's End came out, I could find something for me in this deck to play it the way I like to play things, and usually you would use it on the opponent's challenges sometimes to make sure they can't pressure you with military and stuff like that, and the characters that have traitor attached, of course, would contribute 0 strength. But on this occasion I had to use it offensively just to stay ahead, because he had those sand steeds that were just gaining power passively, so I needed to rush, and I just turned everything I could into power to stay ahead. And then he turned it around, he almost had the win, and actually, as you know, Peace and Prosperity is here because of all the Summer Harvest, and I was thinking if I hit Summer Harvest I have a really good start, and of course Martell plays Behest, and so he changed Behest into Late Summer Feast, and then he played Summer Harvest, and I played Late Summer Feast and got 11 gold out of that. But in the very end, of course, that's 1 plot that he had to skip, and he was forced to reveal his last one, which was Wildfire Assault, and then that big board came down, of course, and I had Black Cells and some traitors and some Shadow Priestess and stuff like that to control it, and I was going to win on time. Actually, he conceded, but I calculated that I would get to something like 14-9 in that round, so couldn't quite win it, but nice finish, a very dramatic game.
Dramatic game, cool.
And so that was game 4. Game 5, let's just see, I have my notes here. Yeah, so that was Dennis's game that he already talked about. He played Knights of the Hollow Hill against Martell Lion and was really dominant in that game. Kept the opponent nailed basically the whole time, and really dominant performance. Big draw with Blackwater Bay, and he had Set Downer Deeds and Iron Bank in play from the start, so wasn't that dramatic, and that was 4-1, but still we couldn't relax because Stark also had 4-1, and if Stark won 6-1, then of course this was not enough for us, so we needed more. And here is where, Paweł, you played the crucial game with Bara Summer against Martell Knights, and we were not expecting Martell Knights, were we?
Another completely misread on our end. It was so funny. We just, I think this game was played at 10 in the morning or 11 in the morning, and we basically on a Sunday morning, and basically we had 5 of us, you know, trying to figure out the best combination to beat the Hollow Hill deck that we were absolutely expecting Bookerman to play. As well as we I think Stelios spotted him playing on the Iron Throne the deck.
Yeah.
So 5 of us were from the 9 in the morning, you know, deliberating for 2 hours what to pick, and of course it led to nothing as we were facing Knights. But yeah. From this game, it basically, the game was decided by 1 single milk. Who was I facing? Could you remind me? The player Gabriel, I think.
No,
Gabriel
you were playing against.
No, Bookerman.
Bookerman, yes.
Yeah. So he was leading 9-0, I think. he was approaching his big swing tournament for the king turn. He had two begging brothers throughout this whole game. He had two fully loaded begging brothers. So it basically prevented me from any Melisandre, any Chef Bob trigger. And then after second exchange of information on my end, I didn't drew milk from the two exchanges, but I drew it from the regular redraw. So basically, milk on begging brother that allowed me to, keep all of his board knelt with Chef Bob. Basically, won me the game.
Yeah, it was a really dramatic turnaround. I think in 2 rounds you were way ahead somehow.
Yeah, from 0-9 to winning the game. Basically, Chef Bob once again doing his work. I wonder if he ran 3 begging brothers in this deck, to be honest with you, but we'll never know.
Guess not.
I also started this Sunday really early, by walking with my dog and communicated with Steven. And I'm really happy done this because I think he put a privileged position in this deck. Or what is this kneeling? If you win and you can take it back. What is it?
Saving the kingdom.
Yeah, saving the kingdom. Yeah, and I think it saved him really. Yeah, in this game.
Yeah. So after that, we were 5-0. So correct me, Isha, if we're wrong. We are basically what we had guarantee is a tiebreaker.
Yeah, it was 5-1.
The worst case scenario.
And then we had to wait for Stark's games. Actually, if Stelios won the last one, we were going to win, but it was a bit of an anticlimax because we got the win on Stark's games. Actually, not during our own games. We watched it; they were played immediately after, and it was really dramatic. Actually, Johannes played against Lys and was not looking that good, but then he had like a miraculous Morgulis and Varys in dominance, and the Stranger killed a bunch of stuff, and he completely turned it around. And after they lost that, it was tournament over. And then they lost the next one as well. Stark did with their not sure what they played, but the opponent played some kind of Tyrell Banner of the Sun Knights deck that also turned it around in the late game. So in the end, Stark only won 4-3, which meant that 4-3 would have been enough for us to win as well. And so we started the party a bit early. I don't think Stelios even bothered to... He knew that he would be facing Martell Knights of the Hollow Hill then, but probably didn't bother to do any deck building after that because the tournament was...
All of our team's energy went to to my game at the morning, completely misread apparently. So Stelios was left alone,
Yeah,
no feedback, no support. I felt silly about this, to be honest, but yeah.
We didn't even know what the last game would be actually, because Knights of the Hollow Hill, obviously sometimes it's a reset deck, but Bookerman was playing a lot of those icon control with the 7-cost Duran and stuff like that. And then we thought maybe they were planning that, and then Gabriel played something completely different in the last game. I think he played Lords and Ladies and just had all the answers in that game. I covered it. It started a bit early. We were going to commentate together, but unfortunately they started a bit early than scheduled, so just had to record it quickly. And
the bottom line is that I think Tyrell saved us 2 times throughout this tournament. They beat the Stark in the final game thanks to Johannes, and I think they beat Tyrell or they beat Targaryen in the crucial.
They beat Tyrell in round. They beat Martell in round 2, and I think it was also Johannes that played the key game. I think it was against Aaron Groth, and I remember a big play where let's see if I'm correct. Yeah, he played Long Voyage, and Aaron Groth played Martell Banner of the Dragon, and he was going to play a big Varys, and he had Unexpected Return. That's the 5-cost Targaryen event that can put a character into play from the discard pile. And somehow, I don't know by what miracle, Johannes had 5 gold in the challengers phase, and the hand's judgment to cancel that. So the reset didn't go through, and then the long voyage drew 3 every round and just kept the pressure on, and Tyrell was able to win that one. So we own them one definitely for this tournament. They beat our biggest, one of our biggest opponents, and then won just enough games against Stark as well. Alright, so I think we've covered all the tournament. So, anything else to talk about? Ivailo?
I hope for the next edition.
Yeah, definitely. I think it will be really difficult to, if we're not in Team Baratheon. For me, I enjoy this so much, and it will be really difficult next time to play for a different faction potentially. I can tell you that
You should be a regent.
this was for me the most fun I've ever had, and also the most stressful, because letting a team down as opposed to just yourself if you lose the game is really a huge stress. And I played in the World Championship. I got very far to the top 8, and I was even starting to think maybe I have a chance of winning this, and it was never anywhere near the kind of pressure that I felt in this.
I agree.
One. Yeah, but
yeah, playing for the team, it's a completely different story.
Definitely, and for me, if I never win anything again in Thrones, I think I'll always have this as one of my achievements I am most proud of in this game.
For sure, yeah, it was really an achievement, as you said, and a great achievement with all our forces together and with all time. And yeah, it was a really nice tournament, great team. Everybody could develop his strengths to the point. And it was also important, and I really enjoyed it. And I only could say thank you to you all. And nice, great tournament.
Yeah, so we've gone long enough. I think I have something else here on my agenda, but it's getting close to 4 hours now, so I think we'll leave it here. Just a few announcements, I guess.
Yeah.
The new pack is in development now, as high as honor. So if anyone wants to get involved in that, you can let people like Steven or Rios know, and there's playtesting going to actually has already started, and there should be some tournaments for that. So that's one of the things, and also the upcoming tournaments. Yeah, the upcoming tournaments that are starting. So we have season 7 of the Friendly Open is about to start. They are not on Jousting Pavilion yet, but you'll see them shortly. I'm sure they will be advertised in the coming weeks. And also, of course, we had news from the GOT organization about regionals and nationals, and hopefully you can all find some Thrones among those events for yourself. And of course also Stalek to come in November, where I hope we get to meet a lot of the community.
Registration is still open, and don't forget the tournament in Norway. That is, I think, the beginning of September, last days of July, and in Berlin, 9th and 10th of September, if I'm not correct.
Yes.
Yeah, I could put some links to those in the description when I upload this to YouTube, so that no one misses it. Alright, shall we end it here?
Yeah, thank you very much for all your efforts. It was really nice, yeah. And hopefully this game goes on with a new package. It would be very interesting.
Yeah, thanks to all of you guys for joining me today, and to all of our viewers. It was nice to have that one big final video to talk about everything that happened throughout the tournament. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you in other videos in the future.